our thanks for living in a great country and a great state and a great community. We ask you to bless us now as we pursue the business of Newcastle, that you'll give us insight and good wisdom. And for each of us, dear Lord, as your word tells us, to, to just live justly and to love mercifully and to walk humbly before you and one another. Bless us now, we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This time I'll call the May 11th, 2026 meeting of the Newcastle Public Works Authority to order. First item on the agenda is roll call.
Carl Nell.
Here.
Jean Reed.
Here.
Wadea Mako.
Here.
Mike Fullerton.
Here.
Marcy White here.
Item number 2, discussion and possible action on approval of the agenda.
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion second for approval of the agenda.
It was Todd.
Jean Reed.
Yes.
Wadea Mako.
Yes.
Mike Fullerton.
Yes.
Marcy White.
Yes.
Carl Nell.
Yes. Item number 3, citizens' comments. This is an opportunity for any citizen to comment on any matter related to the City of Newcastle Public Works that is not on the agenda. Might remind any potential speakers that all speakers shall clearly state their name and address for the record. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person with only one speaking opportunity. Board members will not respond to comments or questions. The chair may end the comment period at his discretion, and prior authorization is required for distribution of materials or to approach the board. Are there any comments related to the City of Newcastle Public Works? Seeing none, move to item number 4, consent agenda. Is there any item any member of the board desires to be removed from the consent agenda and addressed individually? All right, seeing none, item number 4, consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion second for approval of the consent agenda.
Jean Reed.
Yes.
Wadea Mako.
Yes.
Mike Fullerton.
Yes.
Marcy White. Yes. Carl Nell.
Yes. Item number 5, discussion of possible action on any items removed from the consent agenda. There'll be no action on that agenda item. Item number 6, discussion of possible action regarding adjustment of utility account number 02-1788-00, service address of 2917 Northwest 40th Street. Jessica Morris. Is Ms. Morris or a representative present this evening? Okay, we did continue this from the last meeting, did we not?
We did.
Okay, so we will just let this drop off, and
Is she elderly? Is she unable to attend, or do we know?
I don't know. So we'll just let it drop, and if she chooses to come back in, we can take a look at it then. It was not a significant bill, in the grand scheme of things, so I don't understand.
I'll have the clerk try to make contact with him again.
Okay, thank you. There'll be no action on agenda item number 6. Item number 7, monthly treasury report.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. It is April's report. It's the 10th month of the FY, so that puts us at an execution rate of 83.3%, ideally. The revenues for our general fund, to include the fire department tax fund, are sitting at 87.3%. The expenses are sitting at 83.7%. Revenues are slightly exceeding the budgetary amounts, while expenses are within where we were hoping they would be. The revenues for the capital improvement tax fund are sitting at 85.1%. The expenses are only sitting at 53%. So again, revenues are within, while expenses are much less. The revenues for the NPWA finished the month at 68.5%, while the expenses finished at 3.8%. I wasn't present at the last council meeting, but I did put an additional sentence in your summary in the email. I pulled out the capital projects that weigh heavily on our percentages, and if we didn't account for those the way I have to, the revenues would actually be sitting at 86.1%, while the expenses would only be at 84.2%. I just wanted you all to be aware of how that affects those performances. The fire department tax fund has brought in $1,110,000, which has covered approximately
action on approval of the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion second for approval of the agenda.
Gene Reed,
Yes.
Todd DeMeco,
Yes.
Mike Fullerton,
Yes.
Marcy White,
Yes.
Earl Now.
Yes. Item number 3, citizens' comments. This is an opportunity for any citizen to comment on any matter related to the city of Newcastle that is not on the agenda. By reminding potential speakers that speakers are limited, or excuse me, that shall clearly state their name and address for the record. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person with only one speaking opportunity. Council members will not respond to comments or questions. The mayor may end comment period at his discretion, and prior authorization is required for the distribution of materials or to approach the council. For any citizen comment related to the city of Newcastle. All right. Again, item number 4, consent agenda. Is there any member of council that would desire any item be removed and addressed individually? All right, seeing none, item 4, consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent.
Second.
Motion second for approval of the consent agenda.
Oh,
Well,
hang on. Reconstruction. What water line is that tied to?
says Windermere phase
3,
phase
Eight.
8.
8? Okay, well, I just want to make double sure on that.
All right.
Call the vote.
Yep.
Gene Reed,
Yes.
Todd DeMeco,
Yes.
Fullerton,
Yes.
Marcy White,
Yes.
Earl Now.
Yes. Item number 5, discussion of possible action on any items removed from the consent agenda. Be no action on that agenda item. Item number 6, discussion of possible action on recommendations of Planning Commission. Item 6A, discussion of possible action on approval of Planning Commission recommendation for deviation from facade requirements. Newcastle Code of Ordinance, Chapter 154, Planning and Zoning, 154.101, exterior building material and facade requirements in commercial and industrial zoning districts. Section A, commercial zoning designations, subsections 1 and 2 for Victory Family Church, 112 Northeast 2nd Street, Newcastle, Oklahoma.
My apologies, a little bit of technical difficulty. Sorry.
While you're doing that, I would like to thank Scott Hannon and crew for getting our sound system much upgraded. So if everybody
Sounded different.
listening to us online can hear very clearly, and hopefully in the audience can hear much better than in the past.
Better. Good job, Scott.
So
My apologies. Shanae Greenlee with the Newcastle Planning Department. This is a deviation from the exterior facade requirements of Chapter 154.101 for exterior building material and facade requirements in commercial zoning districts. As you know, there's an 80% masonry requirement on all elevations in commercial zoning districts. Victory Family Church of Newcastle has requested a deviation of facade from this requirement. What they are requesting is located at 112 Northeast 2nd Street. That's the location of the church. This is for the classroom located at 100 North Main Street. This was the old meat market on Main Street that had the gas station in front. Since then, the gas station pumps have been removed and the underground storage tanks as well. They've purchased this property and that existing structure there to serve as classrooms. They currently have a building permit submitted with the city for an interior remodel. They came and talked with us about it and asked what we could do for the exterior. So the front is all brick. They're planning on painting that white to match their existing church building, with the sides and rear being painted black. So you can see this is the location here on the left side of your screen here of the proposed classroom. the zoning, and this is the site plan, their future development site plan for the campus. This is the classroom building. Planning Commission made a recommendation for approval with a vote of 4-0, requiring them to paint the exterior metal black to match the existing garage campus that they have and to add a landscaping buffer around the sides and rear of the building. I'm
They're having
pushing.
to request
in-
a deviation because they're doing a certain percentage of value improvement.
That's correct. And also, the building was not built with the brick ledge to support the masonry on those sides. So they would basically have to demolish the building to be able to add the masonry on those sides. They will be providing parking in front. They'll redo the existing parking lot. And as I said, this will become part of the overall campus plan when they expand. I have another slide showing the exterior, and it's not forwarding. Oh, there we go. So this is the existing main building, the church building, the garage, which is their ancillary building, and then this is the meat market that is going to be for the classrooms under renovation. Like I said, they've removed the sign up top and they are painting the front white and then the exterior sides and rear to be black. As I stated, Planning Commission did make a recommendation with a vote of 4-0 for this. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Janae, have they communicated whether plans to keep that building indefinitely, or is that just temporarily? Will that look like it's right in part of a parking lot? I don't have a great need to know that. It's just really curiosity.
They are planning on keeping this structure.
Any other questions for staff? Is there any public comment concerning this agenda item? All right.
Mayor, I would like to ask one more question. This is for general information, because a question came up to me this week, and it's not about the church, but the question is, why does the city go to the trouble of having ordinances and standards, and yet we people come and ask for deviations. So would you just kind of mention, or would you kind of like give us, we have one example here. This one, the brick, and to put brick on there wouldn't work because there's not a brick ledge there, but why, how would you generally answer the question, why do we put ordinances in place and then deviate from them?
So that's a very good question. And as you know, this was put into the ordinance to allow a deviation in these exceptional circumstances. You'll remember we've done a deviation facade where the rear facing building is not abutting a residential district, it's abutting an ag district, or it's abutting another commercial district, or can't be seen from any traveling roadway. Another thing that I think too is important is that we want to be able to allow infill development and structures that aren't currently being used to be able to be rehabbed and rehabilitated infill development. And so if we didn't have those allowances, it would be really difficult to be able to utilize those existing structures without doing a full demo.
So the ordinance includes, like virtually all of our ordinances, room for making exceptions, deviation. And also another example, we've had businesses come in with unique um,
Yes, like
Themes.
a theme.
themes,
Yeah.
styles, and everything like that.
Mhm.
And why would we want to accommodate that over time?
Why would we want to accommodate that? Well, I think the classic example that I've heard that when we added this into the ordinance was like a Cracker Barrel. They have a cabin style architectural theme, and we wouldn't want to not allow those types of businesses because of a strict ordinance. And so this allows some variation for a theme as well.
Thank you.
We copied that about 10 years ago, Gene, that Cracker Barrel thing.
Well,
They're all
it wasn't Cracker Barrel, but yeah, the where Luigi's is now, they had their own theme, and it would have fit right into it
That-
to keep it that way.
Would
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we did it also in Carrie's building on the west side.
Carrie's
Same
building,
park,
yeah.
yes, we did
yeah,
because of
yeah.
the theme.
Taco Bell.
Go Bill.
Taco Bell was one.
And when we do, PUDs and things like that, any deviation, it gives the city an opportunity to specify to what extent, how far, and
Certainly in a
what other
PUD.
accommodations might go with it.
That's correct. Certainly in a PUD, because a PUD is writing your own zoning, and that's the only time that you can really add in masonry requirements, especially for single family, for instance. But for commercial overall, we have that. It's not allowed. You can't, straight zoning, you cannot determine the masonry
Well,
requirements.
thanks for letting me digress a little bit because it's going to come up later on, and it comes up every meeting we have. Not every meeting, but often we have these come up, and I thought it was a fair question that that person asked, and I just would glad to have a
And
little bit.
Of course.
the clarification too, like Janae had mentioned, is we don't have any requirements for facade. We can't legally do that for residential. We can do requirements for commercial. The only time we can do a facade requirement for residential is under a planned unit development.
Good point.
And so, because Tuttle did that several years ago, the state legislature got pressure from home building groups, and they passed a law that does not allow communities to require a facade on residential structures unless it's part of a planned unit development or PUD. Um, so even though they quoted Newcastle on the floor of the house, it wasn't us that did it, it was Tuttle. So, but we can in commercial, and that's what we're doing now is proposed deviation facade in commercial.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Sir.
Mr. Harness, do you have a comment?
Could, I might just add one thing, when we were doing that, one of the things we were trying to do was set standard that people coming in and planning their buildings would have a facade requirement that we wanted, we'd be satisfied with, so that they could pre-plan if they're what they're bringing in.
Oh, yeah.
If they had a reason to vary, and also on First Baptist Church.
Mm-hmm.
There.
Right, good point. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
All right. Any other questions from council on this issue? If not, I will entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve. Item number are we?
6A.
6A.
Second.
Motion and second for approval of item number 6A.
Gene Reed,
Yes.
Bobby Amico.
Yes.
Fullerton,
Yes.
Marcy White. Yes. Earl Now.
Yes. Item number 6B, public hearing discussion and possible action on application for approval of amendment to the 2040 future land use map from general commercial to mixed use residential by R&R Land Development LLC for Riverview Villages located in the southwest border of Section 33, Township 10 North, Range 4 West, Indian Meridian, McLean County, Oklahoma. Property address Northwest 32nd Street and Riverfront Drive, Newcastle, Oklahoma. Reference with R 2025-005. And last time we actually tabled this item till after the next item, which would be my preference to do again this evening, because if the zoning does not pass, there's no need for the land use amendment. Wouldn't you think?
I move to do so.
Second.
Motion second to table this item until after item 6C.
Gene Reed,
Yes.
Bobby Amico,
Yes.
Mike Fullerton,
Yes.
Marcy White.
Yes.
Earl Now.
Yes. Item number 6C, public hearing discussion and possible action on application for rezoning from PUD ordinance number 894, plan unit development to PUD plan unit development by R&R Land Development LLC. Riverview Villages located in the southwest quarter, section 33, township 10 North, range 4 West, Indian Meridian, McLean County, Oklahoma, and adoption of ordinance number 1021, property address Northwest 32nd Street and Riverfront Drive, Newcastle, Oklahoma, case number R 2025-005.
Okay, good evening again. Janae Greenlee with the Newcastle Planning Department. This is a request for a rezoning for Riverview Villages from PUD to PUD, Planned Unit Development. As you know, the council made a request to postpone this item to the city council meeting date. with several items that were up for discussion on potential revisions for the PUD. So the applicant went back and made some of these changes, all of the changes that were requested. Several of the big ones were, and I'll just go through them on the changes. If you have any questions regarding the overall PUD or any of the PUD specifics, to repeat anything from the previous meeting, I'm happy to do so. But for the purposes of this meeting, I'm going to go through the changes that were made. So the first one was large lots to abut existing Riverview estates. That is these lots on your screen, directly abutting on the north edge of the villages to estates. All of the lots abutting exceed or meet 7,200 square foot lot requirement of RF1, which is single family district. But most of those lots are here on this side, on the west side of the development, again, exceed the 7,200 square foot. And then all of these lots here, abutting Riverview Estates. They also increased the rear setbacks for all lots abutting Riverview Estates to 20 feet for all structures. Also, no structures can be over 40 feet in that single family district as well. No lots are fronting on Riverfront Drive now. So all of the lots that used to front on Riverfront Drive now maybe abut a side lot. So there's no direct lots that will have direct access on Riverfront Drive. They've also limited the street connections to Riverfront Drive from 8 previously to 4. Here, this is a private easement, and then here and here. There is a 6 to 8 foot high stockade fence between Riverview Estates and Riverview Villages. The lots decreased from 263 to 251, and they increased the minimum open space requirement from 2.5% to 7%, and the parkland requirement from 1% to 2%. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Item 6 again, the 6 one, the lots after the 6 to 8 foot lengths.
Oh,
fence,
lots decreased from 263 to 251.
263 to 251.
Correct.
Right. Thank you. Thank you.
I don't know what happened.
I don't either.
Yep.
There you go. The applicant is present and has a full presentation as well. I'm happy to answer any questions or however you would like to proceed.
Any questions for staff before the presentation of the applicant?
How big a building is 40 feet? How high is 40 feet? 2-story, 3-story?
They say the maximum in that is 3 stories, but cannot exceed 40 feet overall height. So you could have a 2-story building that has a dormer on top or some type of architectural feature. So, but the maximum height is 40.
And where would those lots be located?
Here. Well, in all of the village single family.
It's all along the north edge.
Mm-hmm. So in the village single family district, it states the maximum building height for single family buildings 3 stories or 40 feet. Single family lots adjacent to Riverview Estates that are smaller than 7,200 square feet, which I did not find any. If there's not any, shall have a maximum building height of 2 stories or 40 feet. So it's the same. And the maximum building height for ADUs are 25 feet. And all buildings abutting Riverview Estates cannot be closer than 20 feet to the rear. The rear setback is 20 feet now.
If I remember correctly, wasn't there a comment for trees to be along the back line?
So there had been when the lots were smaller and the previous rendition of the site plan and the plat, or when those lots were smaller lots abutting Riverview Estates. So since they increased the setback, put the fence up, and increased the lot sizes, they took away that landscape buffer, put a fence in.
What's our fence gonna be constructed of?
It's a opaque, it's a stockade fence.
Okay.
Mhm.
Who's gonna be responsible for the stockade fence?
So I'd say that would be the determination, it would be the HOA, it'd be the Property Owners Association. Because that fence is gonna have to go in before that fence will be a requirement of that final plat is when they'll have to put that in before any building permits would be released.
So maintenance on that would be also the HOA, or would it be the individual homeowners?
So I would leave that up to the developer to determine. It would be required at that final plat stage. So the covenants, they'll have to, that is something that would have to be determined in those
Addressed.
covenants.
Any other questions right now? We'll have plenty of opportunity. Thank you. We can hear the presentation of the applicant at this time.
Should just be able to hit enter.
Okay, I'm trying not gonna. Thank you, council members, Mr. Mayor, Sean Rieger at 136 Thompson Drive in Norman for the applicant. First, let me just address those few questions because I think we were talking back there. The intent all along was the north side would be 2 stories. We just realized with that questioning, I don't think we picked up that the PUD says anything below 7,200 square feet. We changed all of them to now be over 7,200 square feet. So we are happy to change that. That the northern lots should be no bigger than 2 stories. So we're happy to do that. That was the original intent. We did not mean to cloud that by changing the size of the lots and suddenly allowing 3 stories. So we're happy to go back to 2 stories as a maximum on all lots that abut the north. Yeah, and the fencing would be built with the product, but then the homeowner would take over the fence once they bought the home, so it was sold. So let me take you through. I have like 5 slides just to recap quickly where we were at, and then get into the changes in a much more visual sense that we can show you. Again, we are at, of course, on Highway 37, just a mile and a half west of the turnpike changes that you see happening right there. Just a reminder, this is a down zoning, pretty significant down zoning for 2/3 of this property from CC2 community commercial down to this PUD. And I would just note your zoning code says that CC2 makes this district the least compatible with residential development. So 2/3 of this side is the least compatible with residential development, and almost half of it as it abuts the northern end of this property. And this is your comp plan. Just a reminder, the comp plan that you adopted in January 2024 actually calls for this site to be full-on commercial. And so this would be, again, a down planning, if you will, from the current plan that called for this to be entirely commercial. And I would note on the east side of the property to the north of us, it actually calls for mixed use and a fairly significant density of residential. So on the south and east sides of Riverview Estates, it calls for really fairly significant zoning in your comp plan. We are down zoning basically. And your comp plan also talks about a lot to read there, but I'll just emphasize the ones on the lower left, which are taken from boxes within your comp plan. It says that you want to support and promote mixed use development, that's important to the community. And it emphasizes the importance of diverse housing options throughout the city and aims to create an attractive living, working, and playing environment. This is our goal. This is what we hope to do with this project, and to be one of the next era projects in your community that can accomplish those goals from your comp plan that you adopted in 2024. And just a reminder of the staff reports, which we appreciate. We have worked with staff on this project for a long time, probably over a year, Janae, I would say, over a year that we've worked back and forth with Janae. Your staff's been very helpful for us in trying to make this a better project.
And we thank you for giving us an opportunity over the last month to make it an even better project. As my client has said, we simply want you to tell us how can we make this the best project we can make it for your community, and we appreciate that opportunity. But the staff report made note that this will add diverse housing options. They saw no foreseeable negative impacts. And they noted, as which I think is gotten a little bit lost in discussion, that this is a less intensive than the current PUD zoning, and they supported this project and recommended approval. It is less intensive, really significantly so, when you consider the existing zoning of CC2 and commercial and what could happen on that. And staff made note of that and how this would actually create probably less traffic than what the commercial zones would create. So I don't want to waste your time reiterating what we did last month. I just wanted to kind of recap it. Now let me take you through just a bunch of slides, trying as much as I can to show you the changes. This was what we showed you before. And so this is the zoning map that is proposed for you tonight. And before, you can see sort of it looks like purple here on the real screen. It shows more taupe, but purple is sort of the single family district, blue is the multifamily district, and yellow is the commercial district, if you will, the village center. And before, across the top, you can't really see the lot lines. I'm going to show you in just a moment a better picture of the lot lines. But across the top, there were a couple of locations. The yellow was commercial that butted right up against the north. And then there was a multifamily blue on the right side, upper right side, that butted right up against the north as well, right there. So you're going to see in a moment that changed. And then, as Janae said, there were some houses up and down the Riverfront Drive that came onto Riverfront Drive. And also, you can kind of see in the screen, you see a bunch of intersections that are really up and down this whole area. We've cleaned that up fairly significantly, and we've tried to more or less isolate Riverfront Drive as more of its own drive. You're going to see that in just a moment, and reduce the number of interfaces with new intersections. This is the revised plan. I'm going to show you side by side here in just a second. It's always hard to go from one screen to the next, but I want you to see the full size, if you will, so that you can kind of get a sense of it. But now across the top is entirely the single family district, except for the one road that comes around the one multifamily and town center project up in the middle. We've taken away, you see a lot less intersections on Riverfront Drive as it comes down through the addition. And a really significant change is, as Janae showed you on the upper right, those are all big lots now with one cul-de-sac street that abuts the north side of the property. Let me show you side by side though, because that way you can maybe see it best if you're looking at it side by side. On the left is what we proposed previously. On the right is what is proposed, and we red circled all the significant change points. So if you look at the sort of upper part, I get my point to work. The upper part, basically we had commercial up here abutting. We took that out, and these lots are basically just single family lots facing south. Before, we had some lots over here in a little sort of private drive that faced each other. So we've made that change up in that area. Get the pointer work. There we go. Over here, really significant changes. We used to have a street that came over into Riverfront Drive right there. We eliminated the street connection right there. And over here, big changes. This is really a large changed area here. We had multifamily. We had really small lots. We had 3 intersections on Riverfront Drive. We've taken all that out and just put one cul-de-sac with pretty large lots. These are basically half-acre lots up in this area. And you're going to see that better in just a moment. Down here, we had lots that faced Riverfront Drive. We've changed those. Oh, I'm sorry, this is the revised on the right, but on the left, you can see over here, they faced Riverfront Drive, and we had a street coming into here. We eliminated the street connection, and these lots no longer front Riverfront Drive. These front to the west now instead of Riverfront Drive. These front down to here, and these have basically their own little private cul-de-sac, if you will. It's sort of a private court that comes into the site instead of fronting onto the street. And then we took the multifamily. This multifamily was up here at the top. We took it off the top and put it down here so that it's away from the upper area there. Let me just show you now in context. You still can't really see the lot lines here, but I think Councilmember, you asked me last time to see a better sense of the upper top, and so we tried to show you. You're going to see tonight, this is just county assessor mapping. You're going to see this little strip of land there. Please disregard that. That's how it shows on county assessor. That's not really accurate. That was a vacated pipeline area that now those lots do come all the way down. So forgive me, but I wanted you to see the map lines from the county assessor as it showed there. Now this will show you a little bit better. This is the same plan, but now this is the site plan that shows you the actual lot layout of the lots. Those big brown contour lines we thought didn't read very well, so we took those off. But just to kind of look at it again, you see on this upper left, we had a little cul-de-sac. We had a street that came way over and connected over here. And we just had a lot of streets that came over and connected to Riverfront Drive. All of these streets. And then Councilmember, you questioned us on that and thought that was a little bit difficult to maneuver. And we appreciate that. Lots of changes up in this upper right area. You can see up here, you're going to see in just a moment, all of that changed. And then down here, changes where we took these lots and faced them to the west and did away with this intersection here. And this became multifamily over here. Showing that now, so there's the revised plan, and now you start to see much bigger lots up in this area right here. Again, we are happy to change that to those are only 2 stories. That was our intent. Everything maximum of 2 stories. And the 20-foot setback, just as you would have in a normal residential situation. So big changes up here with large lots. And now you see much less interface of intersections coming into Riverfront Drive. In fact, if you consider that this was already an intersection right here, you would suggest that that's maybe not a new intersection, just a new street into it. But now, and this is a private court of just 4 homes. So that's not a street, that's just a private court. And then we have one street, we've lined them up now. We did have kind of a hodgepodge of streets coming in here at different points. We've now lined these up as one clean intersection right there, one clean intersection right there. And now all of these houses face away from the street. None of them front the street or face the street. And so with that, we can then do a setback and a green space all up and down Riverfront Drive so that we have that as more of a beautification street and a street that comes up through that addition. We still have the decel lanes you see down here, deceleration lanes on Highway 37. Nothing changed with that. And so then let me put those side by side and you can kind of see the difference there. Look on the upper left, just a more simplification of the lots. As again, as Janae said, these are over 7,200 square feet. So these are bigger than your minimum for RF1 or R1 single family. And then on the right, these are all half-acre lots basically. Again, really cleaning up. You can see so many fewer streets coming into Riverfront Drive now as compared to what we had in the past. All of these different streets coming in at different locations and houses fronting Riverfront Street. We don't have that anymore. They're now facing away and much less interface with the street. Here's in context, and maybe now you can see, Councilmember, the interface of the lot sizes with the existing lot sizes to the top. So if you look on the right, we're really not a lot different from what's above us as they abut. Again, maximum of 2 stories. We'll need an amendment, by the way, on the PUD to fix that it is a minimum of 2 stories because we didn't pick that up when we had it written as everything under 7,200 square feet. But now that's all large lots that it abuts the upper side. Again, I would remind that your 2020 plan, your 2040 plan has much bigger zoning planning over to the right, but we would be still large lots here. And then this would all be relatively normal sized lots there. So contextually, you can see we're really, I think, fairly compatible with what's above us. Here's the actual sizes. So each of these lots at the top, that's 0.6 acres, 0.5, 0.5, 0.5, 0.4, 0.7 acres. All of those lots fairly large. And you can see, again, these lots are pretty similar size as well. And then over here, the smallest of these lots is 7,235 square feet. Largest of these is 8515. Your RF1 code allows a minimum of 7,200. So we are exceeding your RF1 code for the lots over in that area. And I would just remind, this is sort of what I would remind you of right now, the PUD as to what the Riverview Estates would abut if we just left the zoning alone. They would be again next to a PUD that has over almost half of this is commercial that would be butting up against. And then on the right side, the east side, the current zoning is RF1 all across the east side of the Riverview Strait. So right now, as it's currently zoned, it allows for lots all the way down to 7,200 square feet as it butts the entire east side Riverview Estate. So our lots are compatible with that over here and much larger with that over here. Your comp plan again, the budding interfaces of your comp plan, your comprehensive plan, I'm sorry, would be full on commercial right now if we left that alone. And you can see now the mixed use right there on the east side of Riverview Estates, and really a significantly more dense residential category is what's called for in the comp plan than what is there now. So the changes, Janae went through them, but just a summary, sort of the two sort of globally big changes were the north interface. We feel like we've cleaned that up really quite significantly. And then Riverfront Street, we've cleaned up quite significantly. We changed the zoning all across the top to be the single family district, and we increased the lot sizes. We added the 20-foot setback. And then as to the street, we have no lots that have direct access onto it. We added the 10-foot landscape buffer on both sides, and we decreased all of the intersections up and down that Riverfront Street as it goes through the neighborhood. That's, of course, an existing street. So with that, staff recommends approval, significant changes to protect the residents to the north and Riverfront Drive, and significant downzoning from CC2 and from the Newcastle 2040 comp plan that's in place now that talks about what you have as a community asked this to be. With that, I'm happy to answer questions. I do again want to thank you very much. I know it's a remarkable opportunity for us to have a second bite of the apple to come back in front of council. We appreciate that very much. We hope that we've accomplished what you wanted us to accomplish in these changes, and we are happy to answer any questions you have, and we thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Brigger. Is there any questions from council for the applicant this time? Mike, did you have a question a while ago?
Yeah, I guess I'm still more concerned with the utilities and stuff. That's one of my major factors right now.
Okay.
Like, well, for instance, water and sewer being so close together. I saw one little diagram. I was trying to find it here real quick, but I think it's page 90.
On the far east side, I think.
But it had literally, I think, 3 foot of difference between gas and one of the other utilities. It's like water or sewer. I think it was water.
Okay.
And I know that standardly there's calls for, I got it right here. Typically there's 5 foot in between or in between gas and any other utility. And that's the state standard.
And I will just say one thing, Mike. That will all come at plating, not zoning. So, and I understand, I do understand your concern, but those will all be things that will be fleshed out. Should this pass zoning, it'll be fleshed out in the plating process. That's when those things are detailed.
So are we changing streets in the plating process? Changing widths?
Well, they're going to have to meet the minimum requirements no matter what if this moves forward. So,
And if I could have our engineer address that, Dean Kalita does this every day as a civil engineer, so he probably is better adept to answer that question than I am. So go ahead.
Thank you, Sean. Good evening. Dean Kalidas, Civil and Environmental Consultants, 4700 Galardia Parkway, representing the applicant. So in regards to utilities, if you go to sheet 43 in your PUD, now we have the DEQ standards are 10 feet from outside of pipe to outside of pipe between water and sewer. And the same thing between water and storm sewer. We have to meet those requirements regardless to get a permit through DEQ. Franchise utilities, they make their own rules, but they cannot be in a city's utility unless you allow them to be. If it's a PUD, they allow 3 feet. The last 3 projects I've done, if they change their standards to 5, we have to dedicate easements in the front yard to accommodate all the utilities. and we have to allow the city to be able to maintain their utilities. So if we have to put front yard utility easements to allow all these spacings to make them happen, we have to do it. We can't deviate from that. So we say there's a 45-foot right of way, that could end up being a 55-foot right of way or even a 60-foot if we have to get utilities in there. Certain roads, sewers are going to be in the back of the lots, so typically that doesn't happen. There's a couple instances where we have to be in the front just because of the way we're snaking it through the neighborhood. Water will be 4 feet off the face of curb. You'll have storm sewer 4 to 6 feet off the face of curb on the other side, and then your utilities, you want electric away from water, and then gas is going to be fitted where they need to. All utilities shown on this image are out of the paving. That was one thing that we tried to do is make sure all utilities are out of the paving. So if anyone has to go maintain their utility, they're not going to impact the public street. And anything outside of the road, they'll have to repair as they need to if they have to maintain their facility. But the main goal for the city is that those utilities will be able to be maintained and they'll be in the public right of way, and there'll be certain distances that meet DQ standards, and 10-foot separation from structures is another standard. So we have to make sure if the water for some reason is, if there's a tight lot line, we have to be 10 feet from a structure from that water line. So these easements are going to have to go out as needed when we go through the final design process. This is obviously conceptual. We are going to meet this, but there is rules in place that we can't deviate from.
When you say 10 foot from structure, is that from their porch or what's considered the structure?
It would be basically the face of the building would be the structure.
So the actual foundation of the building, not the porch or the steps?
The steps are technically basically a substructure of it, but the structure itself, because you can, steps aren't connected to the structure. They're basically
That's what I was
separate.
wondering. I wasn't sure.
Yes, correct. But yeah, the structure itself, that way, there's not going to be any compromise of that structure if they have to do anything next to it. Just like when you're digging landscaping beds and, putting in irrigation lines underneath, obviously you don't want to be damage your structure. So, but the city, typically it's 10 feet, so they have room to work.
This line that's on the west side, though, is right under the entire street.
That is an
12 inch.
correct. Now that's an existing water line.
It is existing, but the street's
Correct.
not there, though.
Correct. So there's certain things we can do with that. Number one, I'm not sure if Rocky can agree to this, but there's several options. Number one is if there is need for maintenance on that, the HOA can pay for that. And that way, if the streets get torn up, then that can happen then. And they can work out the structure of that payment then. The other alternative is we have to move it, which is a very large expense to get it outside the roadway. Obviously, we'd like to do the prior, if we made it even if we made it a private street, we could still do that same compensation.
Yeah, I think we're fine to stipulate that the POA has to take care of that. If there is basically a cutting and patching, that we would do that.
That's
Which I think would be rare.
doesn't take away my nerves that it won't end up dumped on the city, though. I just don't.
I'm sorry, does that line, does it run parallel underneath the road or does it cross?
You're talking about the 16-inch
Right all
line
the way up.
far west side.
Completely parallel.
12 here, and I
Was
thought
it-
it was
It
12 on
runs
our
parallel the entire run underneath that stretch of paving all
It's
the way.
straight up the middle of the entire road.
Oh, middle of the entire.
Runs north and south underneath the entire stretch of proposed paved road.
So another alternative, we tried to figure out a way to get this to not impact it, but it's 40 feet off the property line. So the other alternative we talked about was moving the roadway further to the east and swapping it from the parking. If you can see the parking on the west side, if you swap that, the line would now be underneath the parking instead of the roadway. It's an easy change. You're just flipping the road and swapping the parking, if that's as big of a concern. And that could be handled during the design phase of this. I mean, we're just in the use phase right now. I mean, we're going to have to go through the whole gamut of review and design. Like, this is all conceptual. I have not designed anything yet besides the preliminary designs that we did for the water and the sewer and the roads. But all this stuff can be done during the final plat stage, which is where all the details are at. I mean, we're such at a high level here, but we can agree to swapping that if we need to.
This west
Kevin, are we?
This west
gonna
piece that comes,
upgrade
there's
that line?
37, it comes all the way up.
Yeah, that's a 16-inch line.
Oh, ArcGIS was down this afternoon. It said 16 somewhere in 12, but still.
Yeah, but that's
It's-
60. That's our main
okay.
feeder line.
I didn't know,
Yeah, that's what I thought.
well, I didn't know if we were seeing it here. I'm hearing 12 and
No, it's
No,
16.
I tried to double check this afternoon. It's someplace, on some of theirs it was 16, but then it was 12 on here and then,
It was the main 16 to serve
Yep.
estates, wasn't it? Riverview Estates?
Well, that's the main
Come-
16 coming off the
Hidden.
tower, a hidden tower.
Yeah.
Comes down.
oh, it's, okay.
That then comes down and branches off at 37 into 6s and 12s and 8s.
If obviously that is a concern, we can make provisions to accommodate that since it is an existing line running through the property. So, you know, what we can add language to do whatever if that's something that'd be acceptable. All other utilities, though, have been stated will be out of the paving and will give adequate room for the city to maintain and for franchise utilities to maintain. And that's in the PUD language that was added.
And typically when you're over a line like that, like this comes up with pipelines, the language usually is that the sort of a consent to encroach language that the party would, you're encroaching on your line, but then if you come in and have to fix it, we have to repair our pavement. That's fairly typical that we've seen before.
We have an easement over that 16-inch now.
Where the 16 inches? Yeah.
So either way, we get to say on that ultimately anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So even if it's not reached tonight, we have to, we will approve or not approve that part of it, right?
Well, it's gonna come up, like the mayor said, it'll come up in final plating. When they,
Yeah, we got a 20-foot easement through there. Todd.
It's just hard seeing a lot of these that are like, I think they're zero lot line when there's just so much squished in between the curb and the foundation of the dwelling or business or whatever it is. There's not room to move. So maybe I'm struggling to see how that is gonna, if that's a concern, how that's gonna be changed in the next version, I guess, on the final plat, because there's no space to move it. And some of these lots are so small that bumping back, I don't know how you'd even build on it.
You still talking about that line?
No, just in general.
Oh,
I mean,
oh.
I marked these on, I printed the whole thing and kind of looked at them to try to get a concept of how it's going to work. It's just, there's just by design, no space there between the curb and the front of a lot of these dwellings. The larger lots and things I get, those aren't what,
it's the smaller lots that are drawing concern.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the concept of some of these areas. It is pushed together towards curb, create that vision. But at the end of the day, we have to give space for people to be able to utilize and maintain their utilities.
So no
Which
matter
we
what,
don't
you're bound by the separation requirements and utilities, and
Correct.
we're not going to be varying any of that.
We cannot. Number one, DEQ will not give us approval. We won't put in any sewer and storm lines without their approval. And the franchise utilities won't serve it with electric or gas if we don't do what they want space wise. So obviously you can't have a development without gas, electric, and cable and everything else. So I mean, we're stuck with the spacing, you know.
right.
And some don't have storm. You know, some is just a water line, so you have all the space to put the other utilities on the other side. So, and then like I said, we'd have to give you utilities in the front as needed. These structures, the concept is zero lot line, but there's, you know, they could have some variations of how these homes set back. I mean, they're not going to be anything the same product. You know, you're not going to be a cookie cutter neighborhood that has every home has certain spacing. There's going to be so much variation. You're going to have the ability to push some units back. Some are going to be a little bit taller than others. Some are going to be shaped differently. Some have driveways in the front. Some have driveways in the side. I mean, there's so many variations. You know, there's ability to make these changes to meet the spacing that we need for utilities.
And I would just remind, I mean, your PUD kind of recognizes that when you look at page 22, 8.16 of the PUD, public improvements shall be made by the property owner throughout the PUD as required by the City of Newcastle Public Works Department. So as required by you, we have to make those improvements. We can't just ad hoc them on our own. We have to follow your regulations and other city, county, and state department agencies. So and all ordinance shall be followed, all local, state, federal ordinances as they shall apply to the site will be adhered to fully, except as stated within this PUD, and we haven't stated anything different in this PUD. So So we have to follow what you tell us to do in your regulations as to all the utility work. I think as Dean said, and this sometimes gets lost in zoning. In zoning, we're at an extremely high level looking down onto a property and just basically saying, do we want it to be this use, this type of use, this type of new urbanism, this type of product. But it doesn't change what we have to do when we show up with the building permit or when we show up with the final plat construction drawings that Dean has to draw. You know, right now we haven't drawn any of those drawings, and nobody ever does when they're in front of you on a zoning or a preliminary plat. There's none of that you ever see. So you would have the same questions on every preliminary plat and every zoning that comes in front of you. Your backstop, though, is that by law, we have to follow all of your platting, public improvement, subdivision, utility, water, sewer regulations, and the zoning doesn't change that. So it can be hard to fathom if you're looking at a plan that's just a conceptual plan. Well, how's that going to work? Sometimes, frankly, the applicant doesn't know how it's going to work until they start drawing it up. But that happens in sort of high intensity uses such as, you know, tight urban conditions, happens in really urban conditions of infill, such as in center part of Oklahoma City or large cities. But your regulations tend to take over at that point, and we have to follow those unless you do overlay districts, which some cities do, and say we're going to change those regulations for this area. But you haven't done that here, so we have to follow all of those regulations.
We'll make a comment. Part of the presentation showed Vision 2040 comprehensive plan, and the comprehensive plan included the geographic rezoning where we anticipated, but the vision was led by consultants with the Guernsey company, and the city staff didn't sit around and build that. People from all over the city came in, and they answered questions and responded to scenarios and met several times. And each time, the the the, the residents were saying, we look forward to some of those slides that they use. You'll use some slides right out of that comprehensive plan. I'm just reminding us, some of us who were involved with that 5 years ago and even 10 years ago, where we started envisioning, and 20, what was that, 2020 plan or 2012 plan that you all did 20 years ago?
Yeah, 2012
So-
bridge to 20, is 2008 is bridge to 2020.
Yeah, so the old folks did that one, and the younger folks did say, some of us are saying, I'm not sure what we need on Highway 7, Highway 9, Highway 62,
Mm.
but the people responded and they said they're looking forward to us doing it, being a little more creative, a little more future looking. So that wasn't just the city staff or city council making those pictures. So.
I have a question about that because I don't find that in the land use plan. Mr. Rieger, maybe you could help me. Norman has a high density zoning district, correct?
They do.
R1A, is that correct?
I thought you were maybe talking about Center City code. There's a form-based code, Center City form-based code.
Form-based code, and there's a high density dwelling district by itself, correct?
Yeah,
But Newcastle doesn't have a high density district, correct?
correct. You would do it through a PUD.
And majority of PUDs are based on some type of zoning district and then modified. Have to be, the majority of them, would you agree, usually are?
Yeah, some districts they do it differently. For instance, in Norman, we used to quote zoning categories. We would say we incorporate C1, C2. They actually made us stop doing that. They didn't want us to incorporate zoning districts anymore because
Well,
they thought
they still see them that way. Matter of fact, there's one here that says allowed the use shall mirror those uses that are allowed in the Norman's R1 single family district, right? There's another one, and this is a similar property. It's called Villages. Another one that mirrors another high density zoning district that is a PUD written with those requirements from that district in that PUD. This one's called Fountain View. You're familiar with both of these, right?
I think we wrote those PUDs. Yeah.
You prepared one of those yourself,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm struggling. I don't find in the land use plan, and I wasn't here then. And I know we've strategically moved things. The land use plan has been moved, but I think it's a good conversation piece. I don't think the experts looked at Newcastle and said, this is where high density residential should be. I don't find that in the land use plan. Can you point me to that?
So I think, and I pointed to a couple of slides that talked about it. I don't disagree. I don't remember seeing the words high density, but I think it's a relative nature of what is density. Across this site, the density is 3.2 acres, 3.2 units per acre.
All ties more towards a high density zoning district similar to what Norman has, similar to the PUDs you've written.
I wouldn't agree that that's high density. I think high density, I mean, I recently had a project that I saw go through. I actually didn't do this one, but high density, typically you start talking about 30 units per acre and up. I just saw one in Norman that was
You
56
do have
units.
sections of this that have areas that aren't even, as CEC says, aren't even developed yet, or just a blank spot on the preliminary that says this is gonna be some type of high density. Correct?
Multifamily. I guess.
Multifamily, excuse me.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, multifamily. Little pockets of multifamily would be the more dense. Yeah, we don't have many of those.
I just wanted to,
Yeah,
I'm
Oh.
struggling with that. Maybe council can help me. Gene, maybe you have some insight in that. I don't find that the Guernsey plan said these 4 areas of town are great for
Right.
that development. And if we're relying on those experts, then I'd like to see that. I've not found it.
I was referring to citizens' input and not the experts. They facilitate the meetings, but most of the experts, not many experts in Newcastle that know where our development's going to be. And it should be right next to Brahms. It should be down by the Chickasaw Hospital only.
True.
It should be on Highway 37. I don't think any of us knew where those would be.
Well, I don't think we do. I think those professionals do. You know, like Carl said in the past, we listen to the engineer. Engineer has an opinion for a reason. So if Guernsey is a planning firm that's skilled and does that, then what did they say and where did they say these are potential areas? I don't find them. But that we're not really talking about the land use plan. And Mr. Rigger, thank you for your
if-
input.
if
So-
I could, Councilmember, you asked for where do you see it? I did pull this up. This is 2040. This is the adopted plan from January 2024. And if you look over in the key characteristics, it says intended to allow for encourage a mix of uses, including higher density residential. So I think it did talk about it and anticipate it in a higher density sense. And this is the comp plan that was adopted. So I think, and in fact, that's a movement we're seeing around the country. And it's something that's happening for affordable housing. Because what they're finding around the country is that density is what is making housing more affordable. That construction pricing has not come down, probably never will. Insurance costs are not coming down, probably never will. Just as, you know, I used to go to the store and buy a bucket of ice cream that was a half a gallon. It's not anymore. It's smaller, but the price is probably the same. And that's what they're finding with housing across the country is that the way we're accomplishing affordable housing, unfortunately, whether you agree with it or not, is density is where it's heading. And that's how the younger generations are probably going to be able to afford housing is to have a more dense product. So
I had a question about the sewer and the PUD section 7.2. It says public sanitary sewer system will discharge into the aforementioned public lift station. So I understand, and maybe CC needs to come back up, but I understand that the design of the sewer will happen through manholes and sewer line into a lift station, but that lift station is turned over to the city at the end of that. Is that correct?
Yeah, it will be a public lift station.
And then the last sentence of that PUD says, if I summarize it real quick, anyone else that wants to tie into that in that area that would benefit from that, the city has to pay for that. And I can read it better than what I just summarized. Any offsite areas within the drainage basin that would increase the size of the wet well pumps, piping depth, etc., shall be funded by the city of Newcastle.
Or property
or-
developer adjacent.
But you're going to have property owners say, that says or.
I mean, the intent is that the last planning commission and city council meeting that we wanted to include the drainage area that could serve this area so there could be future expansion. Not knowing who can, you know, we know the area that can get there. We don't know the density. I mean, we could take a shot at it, but the intent is, you know, when we come in for if all this goes forward and we come in with a final plat, we come in with a full-blown construction plan set and lift station design, we have to address that with the city of Newcastle. If
I
they
understand
say
that
we
part.
need to bring in, you have to count for this much area, and the offsite area has to be for, call it, a high density multifamily. We have to accommodate that. Now, if we want to
What do you mean by
strike,
accommodate? You're gonna size the pumps for that day one for all
if
these
if
joint
the
pumps?
city requires it, we will have to, correct? Because they won't approve it. So, or we can just strike the language about who funds it. I mean, if that's what the issue is.
Question was really the funding, because it reads or, so the funding is gonna be, they're gonna be property owners that would benefit from the lift station. To say that reads to me that the city of Newcastle is gonna fund my force main.
I think the intent was if
We're
an
gonna
offsite,
change the pump size when I tie into it for
Yeah,
them.
well, I think the goal is always similar, like the lift station that's in Fox Hollow. That lift station we required that to be oversized by the developer when they put that in. That now serves not just Fox Hollow, it serves everything across the road, including the Newcastle Fire Station, and it serves Newcastle Farms. And so our requirement in our history has been that we require developers when they put those in to oversize those wells, maybe not the pumps, and then we require any subsequent developer to upsize the pumps if necessary to accommodate
Wor-
their.
Mayor, I'm worried about future. I'm worried about the way the language reads and future.
And then he said they'd strike that language out,
yeah,
so
we
if
could
they're
strike
willing
the
to do that, that
funny.
take
'Cause
care of that.
we have no idea. I mean, if they want to butt grade on their storm sewer line and do a gravity main to that sewer and spend a lot of money on cutting, you could get a bunch of property to that lift station, not knowing that up front. But if we're going to size that for future expansion, I don't think there's an issue with that because the base costs are there. Expanding the lift station a little bit, I don't think is the.
No, my concern is what is the city responsible for with the way the language is written, so you've answered that.
Yeah, and Janae has been suggesting some language right here, and we appreciate it. On the bottom of page 8, we could change the word shall to be can or may, something of that nature, to take that obligation off of you. We'd be fine to do that.
Well, if it would just state that it would be funded by the developers rather than the city.
Speaking of that, on the utility side of that, I noticed that y'all have it up in the private easement on the Riverview side. And after it gets past that, it goes to the State Highway Department. Um, I've spoke that I do not like our city utilities being in state highway easements because of the cost. And it being with that, we're over 10,000 population now, we're responsible for replacing those. And if they decide to change State Highway 37 for whatever reason, would be responsible for any changes that go on that,
Like relocation costs?
like relocation cost. And if we're looking at widening, say, Country Club here in a few years, we're gonna be responsible for changing that. It could affect that whole area right
They're
there.
responsible for purchasing easements as well, then,
Yes.
possibly.
So that kind of puts us in a predicament, sticks us with the bill automatically running down the right of way. Now, have y'all even got permission from ODOT to run down the right of way?
ODOT. So ODOT's process is you basically send an application in.
Mhm.
If your alignment does not affect any of their future expansion work or any existing utilities, it's a basically administrative approval. Now, of course, we have to submit for construction plans for them to approve the alignment, boring underneath the road. All that has to be designed and approved by ODOT. Yes, sir. Now, if there's some areas where it's too tight and we have to get offsite easements, we have to get offsite easements. We have to approach the property owners to the north to get that, or to the south to get easements for the force main.
Okay. And I didn't know about what the possibility of maybe to pick up more areas so we're not having to maintain two force mains, one on the north side, one on the south side. Why are we not running it on the south side? And putting that force main, the lift station on that side. And maybe talking with those owners on that side of that property to see what can be happening. Maybe they'll join in with you.
History, we had a discussion about putting in a lift station to the east where the low spot is. The negotiations with the current owner did not go anywhere. So we had to move the lift station back onto this property, which now serves less drainage area. But I don't think there's any reason why we wouldn't accommodate, if there's the potential to expand that. We could put language in there about, which I think we kind of did, is we have to get city's approval and we have to size it for the basin that's in there. There can be some language in there that serves for future development if that's the case. But at the end of the day, it still has to go when we design it, if it's a comment by the city, and we have some language in here that says, hey, we have to negotiate with, with the property owners to try to reasonably serve as much property as we can. I think that's something we can do during that design process.
Mr. Rieger, I have one more question, just to make sure I have the PUD, the establishment of the PUD correct for myself. So we have a PUD that's not based on a zoning code, existing zoning code or district, based on an assemblage of information. That information points to a design guideline or book, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so we have a path where of a PUD that's not regulated or modeled after an existing zoning code. It's modeled after some very detailed things in here, but then it says everything is allowed based on that design guideline. That design guideline is not governed by this board, the planning commission, anything, correct?
Correct. I would say though it's extremely detailed in far more than you ever find in a
It
zoning.
could be modified without permission from anyone.
No, it's
Okay.
part of your
Permission
law.
from who?
It would be here.
It's an ordinance.
We would have.
According to the PUD, it just says that the architectural review board and the city planning director are able to make changes to that, and it doesn't have to come back to council or planning commission. This is the way this PUD is written. It's in 8.2.
Okay. All right. I think
Is that,
if we make any
so if
change
this
to
is
language,
approved, then the architectural review board, which until that would be turned over to the homeowners association, would be the developer, and the city planning director can make changes however they see fit for the development, even after we approve this tonight.
so are you looking at, let me make sure I get to where you're at, Councilmember.
8.2,
Okay.
middle body of that section.
Okay.
The ARB shall amend the design guidelines from time to time as necessary to uphold the design aesthetics of Riverview Villages with approval by the city planning director.
Okay.
Dean's comment in that was that the city planning director has administrative approval to do that. That would not come back through planning commission, city council. That this development could be modified and changed by the ARB, that board, and staff.
Yeah, and I'm happy to clean that language up if you feel it necessary. Typically, a
I
PUD,
mean, we've been 10 months birthing this thing, kicking the can down the road. I mean, I don't know why I'm the one finding it now, to be honest, but I don't, if that's the way you intend to present it, then that's just what I need to know.
Okay.
I'm not asking for a modification. I'm just asking if that's the intent.
no, your code, and most city codes say that there's a percentage change. In fact, this has a paragraph that talks about that. We're not allowed to change anything more than X percent, and I won't go through those.
This PUD states.
It has that paragraph in it, and that would be our intent, is that we're not allowed to make large changes without coming back through this body. And that would be typical of every PUD, every zoning ordinance. A PUD is a zoning ordinance. I know Mr. Bryan and I have had this discussions over the years that this is a document of law that you would pass. It can't be changed without
It is, but the
coming
way
back.
it's written, this portion of it is, and then the portion that it points to is not. Then that portion is an unregulated piece.
I think
It's the way it's written.
understand my opinion, I think, and I don't know if the city attorney would disagree with me with this or not, but it really is still enforceable by you to what was adopted. I don't think we can just go in and change language and admit
We
things.
wouldn't know. Yeah, Mr. Rieger, we wouldn't know. It wouldn't come to us.
It would through building permits that have to be issued to construct something if they didn't meet.
Administrative approval happens all the time with staff and
We've seen that all the time.
city manager, and we trust them to do that. So it doesn't necessarily always come to us.
Is that strictly for facade that we're talking about here?
It's that one sentence. I see what he's saying. It's that one sentence that sounds
It's
like it gives a lot of
architectural,
leeway.
architectural review board, so what does
Proposed
that
building
allow?
designs, modification, and landscaping.
They shall amend the design.
It also
guidelines
talks
from time
about
to time.
community character, architectural integrity, and long-term value. You could tie it into just about anything.
And what's an example of the risk of that? What's likely going to go wrong when that happens?
Well, you can modify the entire development after approval tonight to something different.
It
You
says,
go back to a 4-story instead of a 2-story home in a certain area. But I don't know.
I mean, not possible.
No.
that says the ARB shall amend the design guidelines from time to time as necessary to uphold the design aesthetic of Riverview Villages with approval by the city planning director. It's that sentence, I
one.
think,
Yeah.
that's where
Yep.
he's, it
Yep.
sounds like it gives a lot of leeway. It may not be intended that way, but it does sound like it gives a lot of leeway.
This thing.
Yeah, that's the design guidelines. So
Yeah.
your dormers, your windows, the front, if you go through the handbook and go through the design guidelines, it gives specifics on types of window setting and types of things that are beyond what we would normally review in a building permit. So they've made it more stringent for the aesthetic look, the architectural look. So that's what they're talking about, not talking about lot area, not talking about height, setback, or anything like that, strictly the design guidelines. And I think maybe to clean that up or make it more stringent is to just call it out that it can only be that.
I mean, I think
If
yeah.
that's something that,
Maybe.
yeah.
I think that's what it says. I see what you're concerned now. I would just respectfully disagree. You said earlier we can change streets and lots, and
Yeah.
absolutely not. It's just flat out.
Well, I was wondering, is there an area that's specifically marked off as design guidelines where you can see what's in there? And
Yeah,
then anything
it's
that's
attached.
not in that section is not applicable?
Yeah, the full design guidelines are attached to the PUD.
Right, and they're marked off as specifically just that.
Yeah, and when you look at these design guidelines, I mean, it talks about
Yeah, it does.
paver layout. It's aesthetic.
Well,
Right.
Aesthetic.
that's good clarification. Can we go to 8.7 for me next and follow me there to plating regulations? The bottom of that sentence says deviations to the approved preliminary shall be allowed with administrative approval.
Mhm.
Here we are again. So deviations from the preliminary would not need to come back through council or planning commission.
Only with the following criteria, Councilmember. And this is
Streets.
common in
they can
every
be
city that I'm aware of. that they allow.
Altered, but only a percentage. But things could be modified from what we're seeing tonight.
In every city, I see this. In every city, by a percent. It's limited by percents and reasonableness, and your planning director has to follow that.
I understand
So
that,
she
but I
can
don't. I mean,
change lot density by no more than 5%.
I don't
open
see them.
space.
I don't see them in the two that you wrote. But anyway,
I think it says it right there in
on the
8.7.
two that I've read that you created that aren't this, that language isn't in those two.
In the Norman ordinances?
In your Norman PUDs that you prepared.
Yeah, I wouldn't suggest those are relevant to this tonight.
That's
We,
just
we
plating
don't intend for
regulations.
those to be bled into this.
Well, if it's a standard practice, then it would be a standard practice in a PUD. But
Correct. In Norman, so let me clarify.
There's just one other section I'm concerned we're talking about. Some of this doesn't matter. These things don't matter, but we have a lot of residents that things matter to. What we do tonight does matter, and other things get decided later. But this document is very important, and this document controls a lot of things. And switch gears now. I'm saying that it can be modified and things, but it does have a lot of language in it that does a lot of things. So it is a very important document, and to be modified without coming back through the process again, I think for this development could be dangerous in a sense of major changes.
I would, and let me just say first, and if you would, Janae, I disagree respectfully, Councilman, with that characterization. I really think that's unfair. I really do. I think this is a PUD. It's adopted by law. We have to follow it. Every PUD, Norman has its own ordinance. That's why you don't see it written in there. Norman has an ordinance by code that says we can change a PUD by X percent. So we don't write it into there.
Okay.
We have it in here that says the same thing, basically percentage changes. That's common. The design guidelines are just aesthetics, just as it's basically a building permit level overview of aesthetics, as Janae said, whether you want a dormer here or there. That would rarely, ever, never be in a council level of a zoning code unless it's a form-based code that overlays onto a district. So I really,
These deviations for A, B, and C here in 8.71 you feel are de minimis.
I think they're pretty typical of the industry.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I didn't mean to cut you off. But go
No,
ahead.
you didn't. I just wanted to, reiterate that you will see the final plat again will come through. So anything that would change regarding street or lot layout, residential lot density, or common open space will be presented in that final plat. So you would see it again. It's not that you wouldn't see it because the final plat comes back through Planning Commission and City Council for approval.
Oh, so this is only applicable to before the final plat, not once we approve a final plat and they start going then?
Right. I mean, so this is regarding the administrative amendment to the preliminary plat is the title of 8.7.1. So it's in that preliminary plat. So when they bring in a final plat based on a section, say they do this first section down here.
Right.
We're going to do this section with the lift station and get everything going. We're going to final plat this. We would look at it and go, okay, well, we changed this street. Now it's coming up. We would look at the,
So
yeah,
you don't have to do a new preliminary plat.
that's right.
I see what you're saying now. Okay.
And once the final plat's approved, it's set in stone.
This
You
doesn't
can't
apply.
change
Cannot
that.
change it.
Okay.
If they would come back in and we approved a final plat and the developer comes back and they go, oh, we ran into this huge problem. We can't do the lot layout like this. They'd have to resubmit
And
another
I've
final
heard that
plat.
before. Now that you're saying that, I understand what you mean.
And the final plat's filed of record. We would have to go back and
Right.
replat, we would have to probably vacate easements, vacate right of ways. You're done at that point. You're final platted. All your utility easements are final platted. There is no changing really, besides the aesthetics, which is what this talks about, which you could change anytime anyway, as long as you meet the building code. And let me be clear about that. We still have to meet the IRC building code that's adopted by the state of Oklahoma for every single lot in the state, every single county, unincorporated area. This doesn't in any way whatsoever deviate from that. This just says we can change the aesthetics. We still have to meet the code though.
Yeah, we've done that with a neighborhood before, now that I remember, and they had to come back and redo it. I forgot who it was, and they had to come back and do preliminary again because of the amount of changes. I see that now. I understand what you're saying. I don't remember who it was, but I do remember that we've done that before. Maybe out southeast down there, somebody. Okay.
Any other questions for the applicant?
I have a question. Well, the narrow streets would I was like, oh, 20 foot. But then I was like, oh, 24 with off-street parking, so they won't be able to start park on the street. But then when I look through it, there's several streets that don't have any off-street that are still at 24. And I've kind of talked through this and talked through with people that do various things. And like I had someone who does pest control and was like, yeah, this happened in Norman. I pulled up to do an estimate and they were like, you can't park on our street. It's a narrow street. You can't park on our street. And it's like, I'm doing a pest control estimate. You can't do it ever. And he's like, well, when I spray or when I do my thing, I have to be connected to the truck. Nope, can't do that. So like, I like the off-street parking with 24 because that does alleviate that. But then there's going to be several streets in here where it's going to be a constant problem of people trying to park and our police having to deal with it or the residents being dealt with it because not all of them do have off-street parking.
Let me pull up the site plan.
Maybe. I don't really have the.
Actually, it's on my
Oh yeah, it is.
back to my plus slide. It should be on there. There it is. There
There?
it is.
Hard to narrow it.
It is.
Yeah, we can zoom in, but essentially we're trying to over park every area here. If you can look at the parking table, you can see it. We're basically every section we've said, okay, this is the number of parking spots you need for single family. Some of this is multifamily. Some of this is a commercial. We're over parking all of that. And we're not even accounting for the homes, which is the vast majority of single family, are going to have their own garages and driveways. But we're still going to provide that parking out there. We can't show parking in front of the single family lots because we don't know where driveways are today. We're going to be able to put them where we can, but until we know where these driveways are at, you can't block a driveway for the home. That has to come when they're doing the actual home itself. But basically all of the park, I mean, we have parking in various locations in front of all common area. We are requiring parking.
Yeah.
So if there's a park common area that touches a public street, we're required by this document to provide parking there. So those are the spots that these people would do. And you can see from the other exhibit, there's common area everywhere. So they're going to have parking next to every common area. So it's going to be throughout the entire development. There will be extra parking for these type of services. And if they, if they can't park on the street, most of these single family homes have driveways and garages. So you pull up in their driveway, and that's something when you come out, don't park in the street, pull in my driveway. I
Well,
mean, that's,
yeah, and on some of them, it's not going to be a problem. Your bigger lots, their driveway is going to be large enough to put two or three cars on one side even, I mean, I could get
Yep.
two or three on ours, but the smaller lots, you can't. And if there's not off-street parking, then even some of the multifamily, they only get allotted one spot. And like we're Oklahoma, we have two or three cars at least, like, and so it concerns me that it's going to be an ongoing issue and just a burn the side of.
so I was going to tell you on the multifamily, how much parking, hold on, let me grab some real quick. So if we were to zoom in here, I don't want to mess the screen up and disappear here. So on the multifamily lots per se, in the west multifamily area, which is the far west,
Mhm.
we're required one space per unit 71. We're providing 97. So that's a substantial increase percentage wise. In the central area of multifamily, we're required 14. We're providing 26, which is almost double. And then if you go to the multifamily in the northeast east corner, which is smaller, we have 13 required and 17 provided. And then we have an additional 82 parking spaces that are in common area or additional parking. So we have tons of parking. 82 additional spots beyond what's required and beyond what we overparked in every section.
I guess my concern is that the streets that don't have any, but there's 24. I mean, I just think it's going to be an ongoing issue.
And also, I have an issue with the multifamily. How are we estimating how many families are gonna be in a multifamily? I mean, 4, 6, 8, 12?
I mean, we can't regulate what people occupy, but we have in the PUDs 12 units max per building. They can only be 2 stories high. So with these small multifamily lots we've got, you can't fit a ton of people. You don't have the space. So we're limited by the
That's what I'm
small
getting
lots.
at is,
Well, I'm not talking about the land area is so small in these multifamily lots, besides the one on the west, but we're still limited 2 stories in height, and you're limited to 12 units per building. So when you have fire separation, when you have ADA access, there's not much land to build on. It's not like this whole thing's multifamily. It's just there's pockets of it throughout. So
Relatively small pockets, and that what Dean is talking about is within the zoning code. I mean, within the zoning PUD, it talks about the limits per lot, basically, and how many different units there can be on that lot.
For you and me.
Marcy, I see your question. Have you been down to Wheeler District?
Yeah, I know Wheeler very well.
And the street is uh, parallel parking 24 feet parallel, and then the boulevard, and then parallel 24 parallel
Right.
through that entire row of all those front facing homes. So I see your point.
And
Um,
it's Oklahoma, and
and in that
We don't
scenario, they have an alley in the back, right? That's not very wide,
no, it's not.
and but they do have parking out front. They have parallel parking the entire run of those streets.
Right.
You can park in front of your
Yeah.
house.
I don't have heartburn over
But-
24 with I don't. I thought once you said that the last time or whatever, I was like, okay, I can live with that. But then there's several pockets where there's not any. Um,
But Wheeler
but it's
has
still
that
24.
Wheeler has that extra row of parking on each side of the street.
Right. Right. And almost, and the most of it, I think. Yeah.
And are you saying here we do not?
There's,
Correct.
I,
No, I don't see
I
it.
saw like, I don't know how, I went through it. There were like 7 or 8 that that are still the 24-foot, but don't have off-street parking indicated. And so that 24 is narrow if you don't have the off-street option. but with the off-street option, I like that, you know.
So to address that parking concern, we have it to where, off-street parking that's parallel is required on at least one side of the street everywhere. It's stated in here. So on one side of the street, it can be on both, parallel, next to, or off-site, as long as it doesn't block the roadway. We're required to park on at least one side of the street throughout every public road. That's stated on section 8.11, 811. Now they can do it on both, but the minimum is you have to park on one side of the street.
You will have off-street parking available? Is that what you're saying? Or it's allowed on these streets to park on the side of the street, even if there's not off-street?
The-
Sorry, I'm gonna make sure I understand you.
So no one can ever park within the roadway, ever. So this parking would be off-site next to the main road, and we're doing parallel spots. They could be 90 in, but like you have on the multifamily over here, but parallel is the intent, and those have to be on one side of the street throughout the development.
So that's contained within the 24-foot strip?
Outside of the 24, he'll show you an exhibit.
Yeah,
Have
it's
that
not
on
wrapping
the-
my head
Oh,
completely
there.
around it.
So that's different.
I bet you don't have that on the prelim that way designed.
Well, and that's
Yes,
what I was wondering, because when I was going through, I was like, I'm okay with 24 foot now, but then I started going through and there were several streets that didn't have some of them do. I tried to figure out there are different ways that you have it set up, and that's great, but there were several that don't have it or don't show it. So is that,
Yeah, let me clarify. So the prelim plat, you don't show parking. Prelim plat is just roads, utilities. So we created the site plan exhibit that has all the buildings and parking. If you put everything on the preliminary plat, you won't be able to read anything. And the preliminary plat is basically setbacks, dimensions, lot type, road right of way, street widths, approximate location, utilities, and that's the preliminary plat. Then we have the site plan where we turned all the buildings on, all the parking on, every little thing that we have additional that you don't typically show in a preliminary plat. So the site plan does have those parking areas.
so can I ask a silly question? And it may be, because I'm not an engineer by any means. If you've already got the whole property filled up, where are you gonna stretch it to make them fit? Sorry. Does that make sense?
For the
If you've already got your roadway set and you've got the properties at certain sizes, how are you gonna make it wider to put that on one side then? Because the
So
whole
if-
property's designed out here.
So if you look in here, so see the curb line there, it says curb.
Uh-huh.
So the parking would be off of the main road as a parallel spot next to the road, just like a Seaside or a Wheeler. It's the same situation. You never block the main 24 feet, but you're parking next to it with a parallel spot.
But there's like already sidewalks on these, and there's only like a 10-foot, maybe 10.6, I think, to get all the utilities and everything in there. I think that's where I'm confused. It's like there's a very small amount. Like I tried to count it out to figure out how much is there, especially on these zero lot line ones, and I guess that's where I'm confused. How it's all going to fit in there if everything's filled out. So it's not like you got extra land on the side to stretch it all out to add another 6 foot or however wide off-site parking is. Like you've accounted for the measurements already, but it's not showing. So how do you make it show when you already accounted for measurements?
So if you go to page 43, it gives you a visual. So another requirement of this is not only do we have to park on one side of the street throughout all the development, we have to put a sidewalk on one side of the street.
Right.
So you're allowing accessibility for pedestrians and cars, vehicle, and you're allowing parking. Then utilities have to fit in there, that's where the spacing comes in. If you have something, that you can't fit in there, you have to give a utility easement. So it could end up stretching that 45-foot right of way to something like I said, 50 foot's a normal right of way, which most things fit in a 50. So if we have to give an extra 5 feet or even an extra 10,
You
we
get
have
the extra feet. That's
in the private properties lots. So in the front of their yard, we'd have to dedicate a 5-foot or a 10-foot easement to where only utilities can go in there and cannot build within that. And the vice versa on the other side, if we have another utility that's encroaching in that front lot line, they can't give enough spacing. We have to dedicate that. And that's where the preliminary plat is, it's high level. It's been very detailed, but when we go in the final plat, we're doing grading. We have street maximums. We have to go on our grades. We have to have pickup storm sewer. We have all these things we're designing that until you get to that level of detail, it's very hard to put it on a plan right now, but it is guided through this document where everything I just said has to be followed through the PUD and preliminary plat.
And there's room to do that, even with the ones that are already marked as zero lot?
Well, if you can't fit it, that one can't be zero lot line. They have to move the building back 5 or 10 feet. Yep. It's
Marcia,
just by right to allow flexibility. In areas where it can happen, they may do it, but if you got to put a utility easement, you can't build within that easement. So
where do they park?
Yeah. That's what he's saying.
Any additional questions for the applicant?
Mhm. I'll bring this up. I'm sure it'll come up later anyway, but it was posed to me. I don't know if there's anything I could do about it. I try to think about this. I have a beautiful home, beautiful backyard, beautiful tomato garden out there, and someone builds a real tall building that looks right into my backyard. I don't know if I mean, we have that already. We have neighborhoods right now with two-story buildings and everything, but that's one thing that came up to me. And that's why I was really asking for that buffer, that space between, those homes
Mhm.
on the south side of the current deal. So I'm trying to picture in my mind. I don't know if that's within I mean, we do care about quality of life, and I do care about the precious backyards. And I don't know how much I can determine that, but do you have any observation on the likelihood of that?
Well, I have the observation that, again, this is the single family district all across the top, large lots, 20-foot setback.
Mhm.
That would be pretty similar to what R1, RF1 in this district would be and what is already zoned across the entire east side of the residential estates district. So I don't think we would be changing the possibility of that condition much or at all.
Right now, any residential neighborhood that develops would likely have two-story homes, or
Yeah.
No, the RF1 typically doesn't have two-story homes. I mean, there's a few in RF1 around, but not that many. I'm not saying there won't be, but the vast majority of the RF1 we currently have in town is single story. Now,
Except for right over here.
Huh?
Except for right over here.
for over there, and there's quite a few in there, but if you look at
Yeah.
the most of the others, and even what's going in now at Newcastle Farms, which is
Right.
straight RF1,
They're all single story.
they're all single story. Now, I'm not saying there won't be, but you know, the fact that they've got the larger lots on the east side of the main drive, and just a small amount of RF1 on the west side, compared to the fact that you've got about 4,000 linear feet of RF1 along the entire east side of the development, that could affect every house on the east side of the current development with RF1. So this is a very small percentage RF1 in comparison to the existing zoning that lies directly east of Riverview, the current Riverview.
I mean, it would have been nice on the west side of this, be a little, maybe took some of the same consideration for the half acre lots, in that, on that west side of the northwest side, I should say. Even though there's 7,000 and 8,000 square foot lots, they're still a little bit small in comparison to what's in the general area. And understand the concept of this. You want set a village in the middle of it. And y'all's done a great job on the west side. I'll grant you that, and with the streets as well. And I thank y'all for changing that. I just wish there was just a, a little more gap in between those houses on the west side.
Or a lower build structure,
Yeah, or guaranteed lowered.
like a 30-foot instead of 40.
Well, I think they've agreed to that into the
Two stories. Yeah.
limited to two-story, which would
Right.
keep it under that 30-foot.
Okay, yeah.
And Gene, I think some of the information that I've seen too, though, is so that strip that Mr. Rieger shows is an actual strip, I believe. It's a vacated easement, but some of those trees were removed prior, back in, I don't remember what year, along that first property there with the pool. And then the rest of that green belt is still there. Now, it's not in the backyards, and those homeowners don't have the right to that view, I suppose. Those trees are on Mr. Clark's property, but they do enjoy that separation. And they did. That pool on that existing house right there is only 30 feet off of that property line. So somebody in that backyard, even though a 6-foot stockade fence is gonna be there, is gonna be real close to that street going in, that new street. But that's,
On that street,
it's that street to the north that it's right up on, abuts the property line to the north.
yeah.
That street is essentially on the property line per the plat,
Oh,
within about 5 feet. That person's pool is about 30 feet from the property line.
yeah, but that's not the same issue that I brought up,
No.
right?
No, I'm
At
just,
street level, you're saying.
yeah, they did have a landscape buffer there with some trees, and then I think
Oh,
the
the
rest of
landscape.
those trees to the
Okay.
west, but would be removed with the development and just a stockade fence. And then you're right, you may have people's houses looking over into the backyards of the neighbors, but, yeah, I see your point.
Is there a limit in the existing houses to the north on how tall their fence could be? Or was it, you said a 6 to 8 foot
You'd have to write it in
go
the
in?
PUD,
I
Marcy.
mean, I'd almost say just for that
Mhm.
line that we would do the taller one just for that area. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's fine. Do that.
Um,
It's right now written as 6 or 8. Some people don't like 8-foot fences. Is what you get into.
Agree.
So, it's sort of a what's your taste.
well, I guess then my question would be who would decide the new homeowners would decide what height fence they want, or is the development going to put that fence in?
We would put the fence up
Okay.
for our lots. Yeah.
Okay.
But as I mentioned before, the homeowners then would become responsible for maintenance and replacement of that fence once they purchase the
Yeah.
lots.
Okay. I just wasn't sure if it was going to be uniformly put in. We're
I wouldn't think
starting
about,
this.
we all have to deal with someone looking over the fence, and I mean, that's just part of living in the city, but, I was thinking about the larger structures that, just take away all the privacy, so
Mhm.
I would hope that 30-foot, that 2-story limit would, help with that, but when the mayor sets up over the,
Highly recommend
Oh,
it.
yeah.
we're unable,
Ooh.
we haven't been able to accommodate that.
Well, and he's mentioned, the straight zoning of RF1 on the east side of this entire Riverview development
Could be,
would allow probably 100 homes
okay.
along that edge with no restriction on height for all those individuals that live on the east side of Riverview. That could develop out in 7,200 square foot lots, and
Mhm.
every single one of those lots adjacent based on current zoning.
Okay, yeah. Okay, thanks.
Would it be possible to put in the PUD to put only one story on that northwest side?
On just those one lots over there,
On which one?
Is that,
we can do that.
is that
yes.
doable?
Yeah, so we could say 2 stories on the right side and 1 story only on the left. We would
That-
Because they're
To
small.
me, that's big.
we would be agreeable to
I
that.
think that's a good,
Okay,
that's very good
right?
deal, Mike. I think that would.
What about, now, someone made a comment to me, and maybe y'all can explain it a little bit better, but they're talking about the trees planted along the 5 foot, within 5 foot of the utilities. I get this as growing up as a plumber's son. We hated trees being along a sewer line because it would get into those sewer lines. And if we're putting all these trees along boundaries, along these edges, are we gonna make sure no trees are planted there? And then what about where y'all had trees planted even currently? Is that gonna affect those? And
Coordination of utilities.
Yeah, and we can, if trees are limited, if you have a 10-foot easement, you have so the easement would technically, the tree would be outside the easement, but the tree root system could grow in, is basically what you're saying. Limiting the species that would do that, or
Mm.
we could do a spacing further away from the utility, to make that happen is like a 10-foot spacing. I think that's, that could be reasonable.
depends on the type of tree.
Depends on the type of tree. Yeah, and I think we could, and like I said, I did not write all of the architectural and the tree species and all the stuff that's in the handbook. I'm not an arborist, so I wouldn't know which trees to do, but
Nor I.
yeah. But there's got to be some things that we can do that are not going to impact the utilities, species-wise throughout there.
We have a species list in the PUD.
Yeah, I saw that.
And we could increase that spacing to 10 instead of 5 if that helps, just so you're a little bit further away from that utility.
On page 36. we've got a species list, so, yeah.
All right, any other questions for the applicant before we have public comment?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rieger. We may bring you back up. We will now entertain any public comment concerning this agenda item. Might remind any potential speakers there will be a limit of 3 minutes per speaking, only one speaking opportunity. All comments or questions need to be directed to council, not to members of the gallery. And any comments made concerning this need to be made from the podium as a recognized speaker and not from the gallery. So at this time, is there any public comment concerning this agenda item?
Yes, sir.
Hello, I'm Brianna Roach, lives at 3651 Oxbow. I have a paper, so hopefully I can get through it all. Some of the facts of this development are the lack of regulations on what can be built on each lot puts extreme leniency in the hands of the developer, or in my opinion, whoever they end up selling it to. There are many inconsistencies within the PUD documents stating duplexes can be built on 4,000 square foot lots, and then two family dwellings can be built on 3,000 square foot lots. The talk about the height, 40 feet for 2 stories is a lot. A lot of the homes in our current neighborhood are under 30 feet and have 2 stories. So 40 is nearly double what a lot of our houses are. What structures in Newcastle currently are at that 40 feet to 55 feet? There's not very many, even if you think of the high school, the First Baptist Church, casino parking lot. There's not very many that are needed to be that high. So why they needed that in there, I don't know. Quadplexes can be built at 2 or more stories in their requirements. They can decide how many quadplexes they would like to build on multifamily lots, or even the 9,500 square foot lots, which, as they've stated on the right side, those are all nearly 20,000 square feet. So what keeps them from deciding those are going to be quadplexes that are 3 stories high? Nothing right now. None of the depictions show what their actual regulations are going to be allowed to be built. All these compromises that they've said they've made are just puzzle pieces moving around. They've never completely addressed the buffer between the existing neighborhood. Let's see, the traffic flow, it is still quite a few streets coming into our main road, including the main street that goes into the commercial is still going to come onto the main road. So that's still going to be a lot of traffic. The setbacks and easements, you can only do so much with so much space. And so we're planting trees, we're planting the utilities, we're planting everything. And oh, we can just bump it back. We can just bump it back. There's only so much space. So those houses are not going to be able to be squeezed into this area. The density is not 3.2 units per acre. Their documents say it shall be 6. That is double, 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 double. The recommendation from the Planning Commission was a 2 to 3 vote as not a recommendation. This was not pushed through to you guys by them approving it. Parking in the single family driveways, as they said, the driveways are going to affect that off-road parking. So as was stated in the Wheeler district, they don't have driveways in the front. So they have all that extra parking. Concerns were brought to them in our neighborhood meet and greet at the bank 6 months ago, 2 planning committee meetings, and our past city council meeting. Multiple times they have stated things that they would change, and then they reverted them when the pen hit the paper. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Please state your name and address for the record for any comment, please.
Tamara Dickens, 3469 Falling River Drive. I do want to say that I really appreciate the effort that went into improving the northern boundary and the traffic issue on Riverfront Drive. I'm pleased with what they've done. I think it will be much more tolerable for myself and my neighbors, and I do appreciate that effort. I do have one remaining concern, though. In the past, in the planning meetings that I've been to, they discussed protecting these tall buildings that would be looking down into our lots with either no windows on the north side or opaque windows. And I don't find that in any of the language for those northern boundaries yet, or so far. There is some language in here that talks about it in the commercial area, that they would protect the single family lots that were next to it with those opaque windows or elimination of those windows. It's in two places, on 175 and 195, but there's no mention of it on that northern boundary, and I would like to see that at least attempted, to either minimize those windows. Otherwise, we have a 40-foot tall building looking down into our yards, and especially with the accessory units being a possibility, with transient people coming in and out of it, I don't feel secure not knowing who's living there from month to month with them being able to look down in my yard. I would really like to see that addressed.
Well, the applicant, and I'll stop your timer, the applicant did indicate that there would be no more than one-story structures along the.
On the west side. I'm on the
west
east side.
But the east side, those would be lots similar in size to the current lots in Riverview.
Yeah, but our houses are not 20 foot off the back property line, and they're not 40 foot tall.
No, they limited it to 30 or 2-story is what they've agreed to.
I didn't hear that.
They agreed to limit it.
Is that
to,
true?
Yes, no more than 2 stories.
On the east side, 2-story buildings will be no more than 30 feet tall.
But no more than a 2-story building, yes.
Okay, but 40 foot tall.
No, just 30.
30.
It's a 30.
Okay. I still think it would be nice to avoid windows that were looking down into our yard, because a 20-foot buffer is not much. But thank you.
Thank you.
Robert Bastanchi, 3515 Riverfront Drive. I appreciate you fixing the sound system. I can now turn my hearing aids down for the meetings. This is our 4th meeting or 5th meeting. I don't know. We keep going over the same things. It's like we make a few changes. It's like changing the deck chairs on the Titanic. You look at some of the other subdivisions like Stonewall, Hills, they're consistent. Everything is the same. You're trying to put this in an area that was developed for the similar subdivisions. I don't understand why we need this multiple family housing where you can put an ADU on a small lot and have rentals and all of the traffic. I estimated between the north development, ours, and the new, there'd be about 1,000 cars. Everybody out here has 2 cars. I don't know anybody that doesn't have at least 2. How we're going to get out onto 37 or get off with the additional traffic coming from the expressway or whatever that's called, it just doesn't make sense here. It's a great concept. I like it, but it doesn't belong in front of what we were told. We were told this was going to be similar. There might be some shops. There might be an over 55 community. When we bought, we were told the north end was going to have 58 or 68 lots. They started construction on it. No one's complaining. We were told about that in advance. But to do this to us after we've already purchased, all of us out here have purchased homes that hopefully were going to be our last homes. We've worked our lifetimes to get to here, and now somebody's going to come in and put rentals, apartments, multifamily buildings. I mean, I've looked to see where some of you live, and you live way out in the country. You don't have to worry about that. But your vote now is going to affect us forever, not just you vote and you go. We have to live it every day. So that's all I have to say, I think. I mean, oh, the other thing is I looked at Oakmont. Have you seen that? Everybody's got a different wooden fence. It looks like a concentration camp. I mean, I don't understand how you're going to fit all those utilities, everything in. You look at those little houses up there, they're like the shotgun houses in New Orleans. I mean, where are you going to put all the utilities in that little space? I mean, I think, like I said, a number of times, I tried to talk to Russell last meeting to say, we like your idea, but that's not what we were told. And it's very discouraging for all of us to spend over $500,000 on a home and end up having this in front of us. That's all I have. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
Hi, my name's Joe Sullivan, 3467 Riverfront Drive. I haven't been involved with this a whole lot. I came to the last city council meeting, but it just seems like there's still a lot of gray areas. I don't know when you guys were given the packet or whatever you were given, but sir, when were you given the packet?
Friday, Thursday.
And you've already found two discrepancies that you can hardly live with. And you're not part of Riverview. You're part of Newcastle. You want the best for Newcastle. I want the best for Newcastle. And I can't agree more with what Mrs. Roach said at the beginning, that they could switch, in my opinion, they could switch up anything that they want to do. I mean, once they get this approval tonight, if it happens, then I think there's no limit of the changes that they'll make. And they're not going to be the changes that you guys have agreed to. And even by saying things in front of the mic, yeah, we'll do this, we'll do that. I'm the type of guy that if it's in writing or with a handshake with somebody that I can trust, I'll believe it. But right now, I don't trust just the way they're going about doing this. This is like the final time to bring this to you guys. Seems like they should have all their I's dotted and all their T's crossed. You guys can look at this. You can agree with it, you know. But if there's something in there that's not right, please make them start over or whatever and make it right and in writing, not just somebody's word over a microphone. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Derek Coleman, 3679 Side Hill Court. So what I recall, I'm not familiar with city politics. In fact, I've never voted in a city election. Didn't even know where the council chambers was prior to recent planning commission meetings and now the last two council meetings. But now it's nice to have a name to the face with each of y'all. What I recall from the last meeting, there was a concern from one of the council members about the water line running through the street. And that was a concern for one of the council members. And to me, something that's easy peasy to fix, I would bring my best foot forward and correct that on tonight's meeting. And that didn't get addressed. That kind of goes along with what we're seeing from this. Also, another council member had apprehension about issuing a continuance because they were concerned about the traffic flow on Riverfront Drive there. And just because you reduce the access points 9 to 6, I still don't understand how that reduces the traffic flow concern. And that same council member said that he highly doubted that they could address all the concerns. And what they brought here tonight, it does not address all the concerns. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Last chance, any additional public comment?
My name is Grant Bivens, 3550 Rising River Road. I honestly don't know what to say that I haven't hasn't already been said or I've already said. We've been to a bunch of these meetings, sat through hours and hours and hours, for what's been presented to just change just incrementally, just hoping that it passes mustard with you guys. I do appreciate all of you taking a fine tooth comb to all of this. But like we saw tonight, I think there's still so much involved in this plan that's just not accounted for and leaves way too much room for changes after the fact, after it passes this time tonight or not. Um, if you look at our current neighborhood and the density and the number of homes, I don't know the exact number. I think we're at like around 85 or 90 in section 1 and 2. I think there's 70 more in section 3 that's going up now. Um, Even all of those three added together, when you put this in, you're more than doubling the amount of units. And that's just counting the main units. If you put an accessory dwelling unit on every single one of those lots, like you're almost tripling the number of units that are in here. Then you talk about short-term rentals and all that sort of stuff. It's just it's insane to me that this is even really being discussed. Um, I just don't see how it's going to work, with everything traffic, just density, water flow. That's an issue I brought up time and time again. Um, I just don't see how it's going to function. I would appreciate you guys, just taking. We're getting tired of coming to meetings. Honestly, that's not what I work to do. I don't go to work so I can come to 3 hour long meetings once a month. Um, we kind of just want some resolution on this. So it'd be my suggestion to you guys to vote on this and to vote no, um, and go back to the drawing board on this with something else. So thank you.
Gregory Haynes, 3538 Rising River Road. Wife and I reside there. Much like Grant, my neighbor, I can't really say much that hasn't already been said. And I work nights, so I haven't been able to attend any of these meetings. I get them on YouTube and what's been posted. My main concern is like I said, I work nights, so I'm one of the people that come in the evening, so I don't have to deal with the incoming traffic. Now, when I do leave for my shift during the afternoon, which is usually between the 2:45 3:30 range, I'm on my exit out onto Suicide Row or Kamikaze Lane, however you want to really refer to it as. Um, it's kind of a hope nothing ever happens with the engine or whatnot because there's a lot of traffic coming in because as I'm leaving, a lot of the workers coming in from the city are coming home. Uh, with the multitudes of the urban density that we want to add, I can only imagine how much more traffic is going to cause. Additionally, like I said, trying to get out is a nightmare. And I don't know how we're going to combat that with adding in hundreds of cars. If we're looking at, I mean, just on the right side alone, what is that, 50 properties? And so at 2 cars, that's another 100 cars right there coming in and out during high traffic times, not to mention all the developments uh, coming up on the other side. Additionally, you know, as apparent to the affordable housing, I know that there's at least what, 4 smaller neighborhoods all in the area of Newcastle over off of Main Street. What is it, Fox Hollow, Windermere, and all that, with a lot of the smaller units. And those neighborhoods are only getting more and more massive. Part of the reason that we moved, and like heard other people say, that this is our final home. My wife and I, we've busted our humps to be able to afford and get into this neighborhood. Uh, like I said, everybody knows that we've paid good money and we still pay the taxes on the good money that we spent on these houses. Uh, Part of the reason that we moved out here was because of the spacing and the non-urban density and the fact that our neighborhood
was starting to allow rentals, and we all know how rental properties go. The renters don't care about the property. They don't care about the upkeep. Stockade fences, if we're talking about, let's be realistic, between the cost of a 6 foot and an 8 foot stockade fence, the builder's going to put a 6 foot stockade fence, and then it's going to be on requirement that the homeowner taking it over, all those people on the south side are going to have to deal with that. Um, it's one of those things of I just sit here and once again talking about all this is just cyclical. We keep kind of rehashing everything, the sewage, the this, and that's. And much like was said earlier, it's a good plan. We didn't buy into the Wheeler district. I've looked in the houses in the Wheeler district. We don't want to be in the Wheeler district. So I guess that's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Additional public comment?
My name is Donna Coleman. I live at 3679 Side Hill Court. And I think I agree with whatever everyone said, so I don't want to rehash that. What I do want to address is two of the ironies that I find when we're talking about the ARB that we're trusting them to do. My issue is from the language that was talked about tonight, they are allowed as far as discretionary, what they do with aesthetics of the outside. My issue is that our neighborhood, which they're taking Riverview Village, they're taking our name to sell this. We're required to have 85% masonry facade on all of our home, and if we build a building, like if you want a storage building outside, has to have the same criteria, has to be the same thing that your house is made from, where they're required to do 40%. And according to the language that we heard tonight, they don't even have to do the 40% because that can be discretionary. I feel like they should have at least the same standards that our homes do. If they're going to have Riverview as part of their name, if they're going to back up to us, they should have the same requirement for that. The other thing is my issue is with the Airbnb and them being able to rent out. Our HOA strictly prohibits that. If we wanted to do that in our homes, we are not allowed to do that based on the HOA that the developer created. And so my issue is that they're allowed to do this in these little bitty tiny homes, which is going to create more, when you're talking about more people, more parking, all the things that were addressed earlier. I don't feel like they should be able to rent out these little ADUs or the tiny houses, whatever you want to call them, that they should be able to do that when our neighborhood that they're going to be backing up to isn't allowed to do that. I mean, we strictly are prohibited from that. So I think those two things, if this were to move forward, which I hope you vote no, but if it were to move forward, I think that should be language that should be changed as well. Like, I don't feel like that they should have a different standard than we do. Thank you.
All right. Any additional public comment? All right. At this time, I'll close the public comment section of this application. So at this time, is there any additional comments from council members or questions of the applicant or staff?
Yeah, I'll ask about the brick and rock. It was set at 40%, and I think it could increase at least up to 75 or 70. I mean, unless you can tell me why.
So it is regulated, council member, under, if I can find it here, 8.3, page 16 and 17. We talked earlier about 8.2 is the design guidelines. 8.3 is where it says on the bottom of that paragraph over on the top of page 17, the front walls facade shall be 40% masonry, brick, veneer, rock, or stone. The remaining front walls facade shall be 60% masonry, brick, veneer, EFIS, or similar type fission. So this is written into the part of the PUD that is not within the back design guidelines that are the attached design guidelines. So this is mandatory. This is language that we must follow. To the comment that it should be exactly the same as their neighborhood, I think every neighborhood has its own character, different character, And you tend to, every designer, every developer tends to apply that in different ways to different neighborhoods. But this basically requires them to have 30 and then the remainder of 60.
Well, I'll say this. We've had, since I've been on council, we went from 85 down to 70. I think we might even be at 65 now on one of them on these craftsman homes,
You know, on PUDs. Yeah.
on PUDs.
Like I said, straight zoning lies the entirety of the east of the property. There's no limit. It could be 100%
Yes.
vinyl. On
Yes,
the
it could. Absolutely. And you're right. But we're talking about a PUD here, not a straight zoning. We're talking about a PUD here. And to me, I think it could increase. I mean, I know that's a cost to you, Rocky, at your expense. I understand that. But I also understand that brick and rock lasts longer than wood and siding of any side, even if it's masonite siding, it lasts longer if it's built right.
I think if you consider this, we are basically have a pretty large percentage. If you read that, 40% has to be brick, veneer, rock, or stone, and then the rest is 60% of the rest. So, and I understand it gets into the cementous siding and things like that, but we've covered a large area of the front facade to be of a quality material.
Covered it with 40% rock and stone.
Correct, but then the rest can be masonry, brick, veneer, and basically a number of different.
Could be.
Only
It could
20%
be.
each side. It's three sides.
Yeah.
60% only turns into 20% on the remaining sides.
It's what? Say that again.
I believe if I do this math correctly, it's 40% on the front and 60% on the other three sides equates to 20% on each side. So it's 80% non-masonry on the other three sides, and it's 60% non-masonry on the front. Is that another way to say it?
Effectively, yeah. I think what I would ask you to consider though is that there's, I mean, they've been mentioned here tonight, Seawood, Carlton, Seaside. There's a lot of incredibly high-end developments all over the country that are not necessarily all masonry, and people think of them very highly and very high property values.
Well, that's along the seaside.
Well, and it is also with Wheeler. If you pull any of those houses along that boulevard in Wheeler, they're 750 and up. They're not.
Yeah.
They're not starter homes.
You mentioned one. You mentioned Norman earlier. You know the one on North Porter that is all.
Yeah.
Some of those are student housing, and some of those are all siding, absolutely. But Wheeler's not. Wheeler's done.
I think the one that went through with that, because I don't disagree. Like I travel and I'm like, oh, they don't even use brick here. You know, like we're brick snobs. We are, I know. But I think for me, it's more the I'm concerned with the multifamily units and how those will look and hold up over time. Because that's where I see maybe where I don't feel like that look holds up as much as something like what Wheeler's doing or Carlton Landing or even Selah, you name, I get it. And we are brick snobs, and I try to get past that because they're really expensive houses that don't always have a lot of brick. I know. You know, and then the rest of the United States can't have it all wrong either, right? So I get it. But the multifamily ones, I think the ones that maybe give me a little heartburn, but the others, I can concede. I can concede that we live in clay land, and that's what we do here.
And I can't remember how extensive the ADU units are. Are they open everywhere or?
They are. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Say that again.
I pulled up just a Wheeler street of Wheeler.
There's not any brick.
There's no brick.
I know, that's why I said.
There's
There's a couple in Carlton Landing, but they're like master bricklayers from Europe.
Yeah, it's all siding.
I know, it is.
Yeah.
And polka dots.
That's Wheeler and that's Oklahoma City.
I understand, but I'm just saying that
those homes
it doesn't have brick doesn't mean it's
I
not a higher quality development.
Doesn't
No.
those homes are 750 to over a million?
That's what I'm saying. We're brick snobs here. We are.
We are.
Just that's what we grew up with, and that's what we feel like is the nicest thing to do. But they're very nice. There can be very nice houses with.
And I've softened up a lot on brick.
Yeah, I think.
I have to work at it. It's just what we know.
We've seen so many examples of cheaply built additions that's kind of what pops into our head, and
Right.
that you can't have anything but masonry because to have anything lesser than that is not
Mhm.
a decent quality.
Yeah.
I think a lot of our I get the feeling a lot of our grinding in on some of these details is because we know it's not, there's a lot of people that don't feel it's welcome by them. So I think it's drawn a lot of our attention to some of the nits and grits that we may not have if it was a different type of development. But I'd like to comment on the fact that you all who have seemed like you've been in these meetings that never end. This is a kind of a way of life for us at our level. I mean, not our level, but in our, yeah, as low as level as that is. Uh, we have multiple meetings, and but this is one of the most complex that we've had presented to us. It's very complex. Now we've had as significant, but we've not had as complex. And we've, you know, the the Windermere here and the park and everything that we have here, I think turned out to be a pretty nice overall contribution to our city. But we had about as many people are in this room who just told us it's the worst thing in the world you could ever do. You shouldn't do it. Don't let people have that type of home. Y'all are not saying that. I'm just saying we go through that. And the reason this merits a lot of time is because it stayed in the planning commission for 2 or 3 times, and that planning commission kept pushing back on behalf of probably the people and the city to say, this is a very complex deal. Let's look at it. Do we really want to treat this narrow and everything? It's a new concept, and they pushed back, and it took time. It took time, and you all came and spoke. Not everyone in your neighborhood is against it. You probably feel like they all are. Maybe you think they are, but I've had people tell me they're not against it. Some of you all have said, not bad if they could just fix a couple of things in here. We kind of like the concept. It'd be nice if they just fix the thing. But there's just so many different things that you feel like you need to get fixed. It feels like it is a whack-a-mole to you all, and it kind of feels like that way to us too. There's just a lot of different things on this. So, so I'm not going to apologize, or I don't think we have to defend the fact that there's multiple meetings. Uh, I mean, you know, net out, y'all don't have to come in here to these meetings, but the fact that you do keeps us pursuing the things that you want us to pursue, right? That along with a few dozen emails we've gotten, you know, so I think your voice has been strong, and I think some of your arguments, or some of the things I brought up to that does, that is what you would expect with this type of development, that you have that. The narrow streets, that what you would expect. The little village and the narrow roads and the coffee shops, that's what you'd expect. So those don't strike me as weird. It's just, you know, where it is and how it's affecting everyone around it. And then also, what happens if it What happens to our city if it doesn't develop right? What happens if that facade isn't enough and things start failing? I'm not thinking it will, but we should consider that too. So a lot of things for us to consider, not just to make you happy, but to contribute to the quality of life. Many of you said it's a great concept. I actually said, hey, that's a great concept, and I think it is too. Um, I was the one who said I wanted a more of a thoroughfare. Actually, I was kind of thinking it was a lot better than it was. Um, there are at least 3 or 4 intersections there that will that with a lot of traffic coming from both directions for them. So that's not a throughway. It's not a throughway. I was kind of hoping it would be a throughway. That's not realistic.
What do you mean?
Riverview Drive,
Oh.
Riverfront Drive. I mean, I was kind of wishing it would just stay. In my dreams, I wish they could just drive up to their neighborhood without any,
Oh, okay.
and I knew that wasn't.
Inputs into it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
and that's why I said I doubt if you can do that because I don't know how that'd be possible. Uh, I was pleasantly surprised with the adjustments made to the northern border,
Mhm.
and then the additional thought of lowering those houses down so they wouldn't look directly over. So, but the fact that it just came to us, these things usually just come to us at about this time. It just does. The planning commission's seen it for several times. We can come to planning commission meetings, and sometimes we do, but we've got to be careful because we should be objective when it comes to us. Uh, some of the developers sometimes ask us, come to our place and let us show you what we're doing. I chose not to do that. I just chose not to, and I would not have come to your neighborhood either because I wanted to wait. I like to be objective. There are sometimes people say, I already know how I'm going to vote on this before I get here. Not me. In fact, I'm not sure right now, so I'm going to ask for a recess in a few moments, but I'm conflicted with it. I admire you all have expressed, it seems like goofy that they just make adjustments on the fly, but that's what developers do. They hear a concern and they either say, no, we're not going to change it, or if that's important to you, we'll change it. And they've been doing that too. So I'm conflicted right now, but I just want to kind of say that about the process that we follow. It's not an easy one, and I'll pause. Sorry, Mayor.
No,
Didn't mean to rant.
no, that's fine. It was a good rant, and I agree with a lot of what you said. And, I've said this multiple times, zoning is the most difficult thing that we deal with because
Mhm.
it's the most impactful thing to our citizens. Those directly adjacent to it are the most impacted. Um, and it's a continuance of whatever size development those individuals live in. They think that's as small as the development should ever be. Um, if you've got 5-acre tracts, you don't want a half-acre tract addition next to you. Uh, the simple fact is, all of these additions came out of large tracts,
Mhm.
and like I said, there was protest against the half-acre lots from the surrounding larger landowners that didn't want those. Um, as far as for appropriateness, we've got that RF1, huge tract of RF1 to the east of this, directly adjacent to that has no restrictions on height and no restrictions on facade and no restrictions on a lot of the things that the developer has been willing to restrict with this development. And I know the residents, a lot of them don't think this. We look for opportunities when it's impactful to residents for a downzoning. This is a downzoning from what's there. Originally, when Riverview Estates was put in, the entire 80 acres in front of it was commercially zoned. They came back and then rezoned a portion of that to the E3 size lots, but still there's a vast majority of that tract that is commercially zoned. And it's easy to say, well, we would rather have commercial there until commercial comes. And instead of a single lot house behind you, you've got them pulling in all hours of the night with 18-wheelers unloading behind that commercial business there, right in your backyard. So you don't see a house back there, you see 18-wheelers pulling in, backing up to a dock. That's possible on that entire area on the northern side. You know, it's just like being behind Walmart up there. That's they come in the backside, and that's where they do their loading and unloading with their trucks. So the prospect of having houses along there, especially with the restrictions the developer proposes, rather than having a commercial business that's coming in and having that come in at all hours, and the traffic that a commercial, and I do feel like it's a significant downzoning that will be beneficial to the overall area and the residents there. And I know a lot of residents don't think that, but I think it's positive in that respect. I do appreciate the developer making a lot of the changes. And, you know, when the developer reached out to me, similar like he did to other council members, and for me to go look at places, I chose not to go look at things, uh, just like Councilman Reed. But what I asked the developer to do is listen to the residents, listen to the concerns that they're providing at meetings, and do everything you can to make changes to the development to address those concerns, to make it as least impactful as possible, but still a feasible development. And I think that the applicant has done a fairly reasonable job of trying to accommodate as much as possible, and still have a development that is feasible moving forward. Um, Simple fact is the land on both sides of Riverview, it's going to develop. It's going to develop probably sooner than you would want it to develop, both on the east and the western sides of your entire development. There's going to be lots of development out here. Um, Change is hard. I've lived out here a long time. I've seen a lot of change, and it's hard. You know, it's a different Newcastle than it was in the past, and it'll be a different Newcastle in the future. And our goal is to try to make it the best Newcastle it can be. And I'm also a firm believer that people that own property have rights to a certain extent to utilize that property. And it's a view that a lot of people have right now that they appreciate, but the only way to secure that view will never change is to own that. And um, I don't know, it's a very difficult decision for all of us up here. I've looked at a lot. I appreciate all the emails. I've read every email I've received. I've gone and I've looked at the issues that have been brought up. A lot of those have been addressed by the developer. But you know, I think that there's a compromise that's been put forth that makes this much better than the initial proposal was when it came in. And I think that long term, it's something that really can be beneficial to the area. That's my thoughts.
Could I just tag on that before you pass it on?
Sure.
Do you think it's realistic that if that went commercial, do you think it's realistic that almost anything could go in there?
Anything could,
And my observation is on Highway 9, anything off the highway is getting developed on heavier stuff, like behind Love's and stuff like that. They're talking about some significant development down there, significant. And it's not going to be, it may be restaurants and stuff like that or homes, but I think that commercial part of it very likely, if it remains commercial, could be something. We've had that happen a few times in Newcastle. One of them is I think R&R Steel or something. Nothing against them, but they put in their steel business down the road, and the residents around them were not happy at all. And then they put in the storage buildings. But I think realistically, I'm wondering. I mean, that property, that is an option for that property if it doesn't go in as a development, right?
sure, I mean, anything that's allowable in CC2 commercial zoning could go there by right. We don't have the ability to restrict that. And that's a lot of things that I wouldn't want backing up to my home necessarily. And not, you know, not saying it will, but it could. I don't know. I do know with the demographics out here and with the growth that's happening, we're very attractive to a lot of things, not just adjacent to I-44, but anywhere along our 62, 37, Highway 9 corridors, even 130 and 76. There's going to be significant commercial interest in all those areas just because the demographics indicate that that'll be a good place to put those things.
Would they use that same access road, riverfront?
Yes,
They'd have,
they abut it and they have
They'd
they
have
have the right to.
yeah, it's a public street.
And so That's my concern is it's easy to say we don't want it now until it comes. And if it was me, I would prefer to see the residential development there, even on a little bit denser than to see that develop out commercially.
Mayor, I would agree. I appreciate what they've done to the east and I agree with Gene as well along those lots. Appreciate what they did with Riverview Drive coming in, even based on the history there. What I would like to see is some accommodation for that tree line along the north. I know they made some accommodation in those houses or those lots are 7235 to 8515. But I've heard from multiple residents along that west line in that area, and some of those are veterans, and some of those are still active service. Some of those have said, we bought in there for a reason. We came back from serving. We wanted to live in Newcastle. We chose that neighborhood for a reason. We chose that lot for a reason with that tree line. And that means a lot to me for those folks that have served or currently serving. I noticed that we have a park fee, right? We let a developer pay for the park in lieu of putting in parkland. We've completely, I think, Janae, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we've waived that completely for this developer. They're not required to pay the park fee. Is that right?
Yeah, they're dedicating 7% open space and 2.5% improved parkland.
But they went from 1 to 2, but the requirement is 3.
3.5%.
And a half. So we let them reduce that, and then also they're not paying a fee of any kind. I'd like to present to Mr. Clark and Mr. Rieger tonight to consider retaining that strip along the north somehow. I don't know how that would work with CEC having to create even a buffer strip up there that would move things down. But that would be my ask, and I did the same. I have asked for copies of this in the very beginning, early when it was in the prelim stages, and didn't push for that. I've gotten it through the regular process of council, the 2-3 days before, and Mr. Clark reached out to me, and it wasn't because out of disrespect to not meet with him, but I didn't think it was appropriate as a council member to have a private meeting with you. But I do appreciate you reaching out. So I would like to see some accommodation along that west line there, but I don't know if they're up for speaking about that further right now, or if that's out of turn or not, Mayor. But
Yeah, I can let any member of council that wants to ask questions of the applicants can do so at this time.
I bet they would like to talk about that.
I don't. So Sean, just real quick on that strip that's on the north side there, that little strip you talked about earlier that's incorrect on the assessor records, is that part of the lots to the north in Riverview, or is that?
It's part of it. Yeah,
And
it's part of the loss to the north.
It's
it's
not-
included right now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's in Riverview. It's not in what we're talking about.
It's not in the PUD we've presented tonight, so it's.
But
But the tree line is on Mr. Clark's property. All that entire tree line is off the lots currently.
And we're happy to preserve that tree line, and we can even plant commonly in zoning. A common thing to do is to put in a new
It's
tree.
it's a big ask, so I want you to be able to make that statement. I think it modifies the plat probably to some degree as well. It's a prelim, right? But would it be possible to keep that tree line along the north?
Yeah, I think so. Dean, correct me if I'm wrong, but we don't have anything planned on that.
No, I mean, you could provide a buffer there, and if you look at the site plan, sorry, this has actually been surveyed, that is, so that strip of oil easement was vacated, and then it went into the lots.
It
So
went
you gotta
into the lot to the south or the north.
To the north.
You
Okay.
can see like the
Yeah.
pool, like the lot lines go through the pool.
Oh, I see that now.
Yeah.
Those lines were all
You can see
usually
their
anyway.
lot lines are actually that.
See that now. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but the trees aren't on that strip, correct? They're actually down on the property.
Some are on
They're-
both, but yes, they're south of
Majority.
Clark's property.
So if we're talking about something in the PUD document that requires a buffer, what are we talking about?
I think you do a 10-foot landscape buffer, and we could add a tree requirement across that buffer. Preservation of existing trees, and there's one area, it seems like on the other side, you mentioned the pool area, that perhaps we put a tree line of some kind. But we're happy to do that, preserve trees and add trees in perhaps a 10-foot wide buffer.
That further supports my request up on that part too. Well said, Todd. I mean,
Yeah,
All right, thank you.
we're happy to do that.
Are we talking about all the way across the north line or just that northwest?
I think the request was just, oh
The
boy,
northwest, I think.
just the northwest.
I'm just getting
Yeah.
clarification.
I mean, that's what we were contemplating because of that strip.
Any other comments from council?
I know this isn't part of it, but I definitely have people who have been asking me about the HOA stuff. And I know that's not based upon this at this time, but I don't see a way that this phase is ever going to go away from being an HOA, period. End of discussion on that. If you got rentals and if you're renting out part. I'm just curious about on the other parts. I mean, I know you said when it gets to 100%, but you got lots that's not, I see not lot buildable. I mean, maybe there is if they haul enough dirt into them, but I just don't see it happening. And I do feel like these people need to get a voice in the backside that live back behind there. Whether they're a voting member of that architectural board or not, or the HOA, you need some civilians in there that are from the neighborhood to give input on the HOA and on the architectural board side of it as well.
I don't think we can require that of people outside of the area, for sure.
Yeah.
I don't think we can require that there be members of the,
Not on this, no.
on the HOA from outside the area.
you talking about HOA for the existing neighborhood?
Yes,
So you, okay, so.
yes. And as well as.
And we don't, and I'm sorry, public comment is over, I'm sorry. But, you know, we don't dictate HOAs. And
No,
we
we do not.
we don't regulate HOAs. And so we have no,
I think it's part of the PUD eventually, though. The HOA is, the rules and the regulations will get
Be a
right into the
different one.
PUD, don't they?
It's a separate HOA.
it's a separate document and it's something the city has no control whatsoever over.
Yeah, HOA documents are a body of contract law, basically is the way the law views them between the property owners and the declarant, they call it, which is usually a developer. And so the law considers it a contract. So when you buy a property per title, you're
All right, I mean, I get that part of it, but the problem is I just think that there needs to be some little more civilian brought into it.
understood.
I do still have heartburn over over the force main running down the right of way. I do not want the city to be caught at that or be changed at that if it should ever change.
You know, and if this was a 2-lane road, I would have major concerns about that as well. We've got lots of instances. We're going to have a lot more. You know, Chickasaw Nation is going to run their force main down miles of a highway right away. And you know, with the 4-lane highway in place, I don't see that ever going to a 6-lane. And I don't think we're going to have.
Who's going to be responsible for their force main?
Huh?
Who's going to be responsible for their force main? Us or them?
Well, it's a separate issue, not tonight, but eventually it's like any other sewer improvement. It'll be dedicated to the city of Newcastle.
And that'd be every property along Highway 37 you're dealing with now, right?
Yeah.
You'd be having that conversation with every development coming forward, right?
If they were having to use the highway right away for their utilities.
Okay.
And so I understand what Mike's saying, because, you know, Highway 76 was widened. You know, if we had anything that was in the highway right away, we would have had to pay to move that. If we were outside in a separate right of way that we own, they would have to pay us. But this is already 4-lane. It's already an extremely right of way. So that's not a big concern to me on a situation like this, because that road's never getting any wider.
In the same token, but how many more force mains are we going to have running along 37? Because I can see at least 2.
We hope none. The goal would be to have this sized to the extent that it would be serving that entire drainage area, and any potential other lift stations that were needed would come into this lift station, and it would be a singular lift station for going back to the east. There may be some to the west that then flow into this one and then piggyback onto it. But the goal would be never to have parallel tight lines going along Highway 37.
But if you look at Bobby Fox's property,
Mhm.
that's gonna come across the street and go into this, then go back up the hill.
I don't, it may not. It may go straight back up the hill.
See, that's where I'm talking about where we
Could be.
have up two force mains.
On the same side of the road?
That'll be all.
Oh, on opposite sides of the
Oh,
road.
okay.
You know, and that's all, I mean, that's all what ifs, but you know,
Right.
I don't know.
It
It could,
is.
it could go under the road, but boring the road's gonna be pretty expensive too.
Exactly.
So in those cases, it wouldn't surprise me at all to have force main on both sides. And that's probably not unusual either.
And then here we go. And we got double the double the pumps, double the basins, and double the force main.
But we don't know.
We don't know yet. But this opens that up for that. Because if they get to do it, then the next person coming along the line is going to want the same thing.
Eventually, I mean, eventually we'll have a lift station out at 37 or at 37 and 76, I'm sure.
I'm sure.
Well,
And
That's
so,
over another hill.
so I'm sure, hopefully we'll pump back into this and anything that potentially be on the east side, maybe pump into one on Fox. on
what's
Fox
the
property.
difference? Just like the front area is not so space limited. What's I don't know enough about it to know the technical reason why it would be in that and not in an easement. I don't know. Like what's
Just a lot simpler to run.
okay.
It really is.
I just I just don't know. Okay.
If I could,
Sure.
there is an option, once that, say the Riverview lift station is sized accordingly, it pumps east to go behind the service station where the gravity main is. If a new lift station comes online, when that comes online, the city can make the guy tie that into his, size it for both lift stations, and then use a force main and pump it out. You just have to have the right volume and the right size of pumps to make it work. But there's that option too. You can retrofit that hypothetically if you needed to do something like that.
I just end up with two lift stations, no matter what.
Two lifts, yeah, but then you share, you have one force main
Yeah.
that goes east and west.
That's why I was thinking if it's on the south side of the road, we wouldn't have an issue. Because everything's going to drain down to that south side.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Go back up the hill.
without knowing where it all goes now. It's
But I realize that's you having to communicate with those landowners
correct.
and getting that permission to put there.
Correct.
Any other comments or questions from council? I agree with what's been said multiple times tonight. I think this has been hashed at planning commission for a long, long time and city council for a long, long time. And it's to the point in time that I think there needs to be a vote. Yes, no, up, down, just to get this finalized. I appreciate the input from the citizens. I appreciate the conversations with council. Appreciate the developer willingness to try to adjust to the extent that they can to address any concerns or as many concerns of the affected residents as they possibly can. And with that being said, in order to move this forward, I will make a motion for approval with the following conditions: the maximum height being no more than 30 feet, the two-story maximum height throughout the development, 1-story maximum on all the small lots west of Riverview Drive. Any pavement damaged by servicing the water line on the existing Newcastle water line easement running on the west side of the property, that pavement repair will be the responsibility of the HOA or the developer. The city will not bear any responsibility. The strike language that the city would bear any cost of lift station improvements for additional development access. An 8-foot fence will be required along the entirety of the north side of the development where it abuts the existing Riverview development. And a 10-foot landscape buffer on the north side of development west of Riverview Drive to preserve the existing trees. And if no existing trees are present, it'll be required that the developer plant trees in that landscape buffer. Is there any additional?
And I may have missed it, the single story limits on those.
Yes,
Said that?
one story on the small lots west of Riverview.
Yeah, thanks.
So I'll make that motion.
Well, I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second for approval of item number 6C
With these.
with the
amendments.
conditions that were stated. Hold up.
Gene Reed,
Yes.
Todd D'Amico,
No.
Mike Fullerton,
Mr. Clark, you did a great job of making changes, and I appreciate that, but I'm gonna have to vote no this time.
Marcy White,
No.
Carl Nell.
Yes. Motion fails 3-2. All right. We'll now take up item number 6B. Public hearing discussion of possible action on application for approval of amendment to the 2040 future land use map from general commercial to mixed use residential by R&R Land Development LLC for Riverview Villages located in the southwest quarter, section 33, township 10 north, range 4 west, Indian Meridian, McLean County, Oklahoma. Property address Northwest 32nd Street and Riverfront Drive, Newcastle, Oklahoma. Reference with case number 2025-005. Based on the previous vote, I'll make a motion to deny this item.
Second.
Motion second for denial of item number 6B.
Gene Reed,
Yes.
Yeah.
Todd D'Amico,
Yes.
yes. Mike Fullerton,
Yes.
Marcy White,
Yes.
Carl Nell.
Yes. Item number 6D, discussion of possible action on adoption of emergency clause of ordinance number 1021. No action on that agenda item because the ordinance did not pass. Item number 6E, discussion of possible action on approval of preliminary plat of Riverview Villages. No action on that agenda item as well because the Riverview Villages zoning PUD did not pass. Item number 7, city manager's comments.
I don't have any comments.
All right, item number 8, council member comments.
I just want to remind that if we can next time to discuss the speed limit on 16th. I know we had a lot on our plate tonight, but
16.
northwest.
Northwest.
But
Oh, yeah,
where it switches-
budding the park there.
yes,
Yeah.
I mean, I think it calls for it. We're gonna have senior housing there. It already is at 35. We could just keep it the rest of the way. There's just gonna be busy there. But we had a lot going on tonight, so that's.
So
I have
we
two,
can put that on the agenda.
I have two comments. Number one, really proud of Victory Family Church, the ministry they do in our community, and excited to see their plans develop over the future. Also, another church, the Newcastle Christian Church, just on 24th Street. They're celebrating their 30 years ministering to this community, and the pastor couldn't be here tonight. He had a conflict, unfortunately, because he wanted to speak. But they're going to be. They really support the community in a lot of ways. They've taken time to feed all the teachers one day. They're taking care of they're going to feed or treat our city staff and our workers. And they brought brought cupcakes tonight. So welcome to a cupcake if there's any left over there.
Everybody grab a cupcake before you leave.
So Billy Collier, kudos to him and these churches. The churches are one of the 5 stars of making us a 5-star community. They do great ministry within our church, in our community.
Any other council member comments? Item number 9 is adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion second for adjournment. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.